and welcome to another exciting show. And tonight we have two very prominent guests. We've got Patrick, our cheese connoisseur.
Hey. And what happened to Eric? Or did I get booted out?
Hang on. No, that's okay. We just had a little echo. Little boy echo. Here we go. As I say, we've got two prominent guests. We've got Patrick from our cheese ambassador from Wisconsin. A very cool Wisconsin today. Yes, yeah. Wisconsin today.
It was 2 degrees yesterday.
And it was similar here. It's 20 yesterday, but it wasn't as cool as that. It was about 15 here. And of course, we've got Survival Steve, our Minister of Fockham Defence.
Wake up Hello. Your mind, fill up your day. Hoink, hoink. Smart little vibes that brighten your way. You're listening to Food for Thought Radio. Here at FFTradio.com. Club Blue, oink!
Good evening to Food for Thought Radio, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, should be X, but it hasn't. It's bounced me off of X. I don't know quite why. Holy Land Radio, Holy Land FM. Have I forgotten any? Oh, Soapbox Radio as well, Radio Soapbox as well. And anybody I've forgotten. And tonight I got caught out again by the introduction. Do this every week. I'll have to have a lead in. Always mistime it. So I'm repeating myself for those of you that are on Rumble and YouTube. Our guests tonight are Patrick from Wisconsin. And of course, we got Survival Steve in studio from up north. And as I say, we've got Enro. Evening, Anorak. Very, very good of you to come on board. We got Sam. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And thanks, Sam. Sound is good on YouTube. Much appreciated, mate. That's much appreciated. And we've got Mark Anthony. Good evening, all. Got this geezer. I don't know who he is. Hello to all on day 322. We got TLBN. Well, anyway, good evening, gents. TLBNA Wacky.
It's that's life, but not as we know it.
Ah,
it's William from up in Scotland. So, hey up, William.
Oh, William, that's it. Now, and Embryo, of course, agrees with you. There we are. And 322. So, what has happened dramatic today? I mean, they've said that Iran has bombed some island in the middle of nowhere that belongs to Britain, but Iran has said it's not them, it's a false flag because they haven't got any missiles that could reach it because it's about 4,000 miles away, and their missiles
Diego Garcia
2,000. That's it, yeah, and they can only reach 2,000 miles. So I don't know. Who knows what's going on?
That's the big base where they put all the big bombers and they set it all up to declare war wherever they want in that area.
Well, wasn't that in the Second World War? Didn't they bomb Tokyo from there or somewhere?
I don't know. It's in the Indian Ocean, kind of south of the whole area.
Yeah, it's the Chagos Islands. And I think there was, I can't remember exactly, but I'm not sure if Britain actually gave it back to the local people, or they've done something with the lease of the place in recent years. But yeah,
are the Chagos and Diego Garcia the same?
I believe so. I mean, the British and Americans have a coalition air base on it.
Yeah, I heard that the Americans lease it from the Brits. That's what I know.
Yeah, it might be something along those lines. It's a bit of a secret place as well. It's, I mean, in terms of numerology, the word itself is quite interesting because it D and G, as in Diego Garcia, give the number equivalent of number 47, which is a very Masonic number. You see that quite often in Freemasonic rituals or parodies or events. That's,
really?
Yeah,
We have a store in our town called Dollar General. We call DG. That's interesting.
Okay.
It's kind of like it's kind of like the rustic Walmart.
Rustic Walmart. I like that. But Steve, a little bit of a background to yourself. I mean, I'm doing a Paul English here now. You're ex-army or forces, and I'm going to repeat. I do a poll here. Was there a specific time when the penny dropped when you was thinking, "Hang on a minute"? Was there that moment you're thinking, "Hang about, there's something not quite right here"? Can you sort of pinpoint it? Because I can't pinpoint it in my life when it was. I just sort of, I think I was bold, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I was still serving in the army, and I did for several years afterwards. You could say I was even trying to. I mean, I was aware of something called the alchemical great work, which I could maybe mention at some stage this evening. But I was conducting alchemy amongst serving soldiers to try and get them to understand the dynamics of what was at work within, well, on the world stage, so to speak. And to be quite honest, quite a few soldiers were interested, but ultimately it came down to that very prominent religion, which is the belief in money. And of course, the truth doesn't pay a great deal, whereas living the comfortable lie ensures that people can maintain their mortgages or buy the next car that they desire. Ultimately, the truth doesn't pay the bills, so why would anybody want to follow it?
That's it. And I think also it's turned us all into mercenaries in a way. It doesn't matter whether you're in the forces or not. Because, when I was freelance, nothing to do with the forces, I was in architecture, I became very mercenary. Because when you say mercenary, I think I'll have a break after this contract finishes. And then someone comes along and says, we got a project here that's about a month long or 2 months or whatever. And you say, well, I don't know. How much? Oh, yeah, I'll do it. That's basically it. You're just chasing daily dollar. All the time. And in hindsight, I was like a dog chasing its tail because I was not happy. I was stressed out in my mind most of the time, and not, that's the thing. You've got to be happy deep down inside, and but I think that today, it's a 22 day, so it's not over yet. So something might happen today. I don't know. I mean, what we do know is that somewhere in the Middle East, some poor sod's getting bombed the crap out of them. That's about the only thing we do know. What's happening? Anyone's guess, because censorship is high. We just don't know, But now you run a very interesting channel on Telegram called Occult Academy. Now, tonight's show, we did start off as, it's The Crowd. And I've never heard of this chat before, and I've lost a few members off of Telegram because of it. My channel's gone down because I think people are taking offense with it. I don't know. It's really weird. The numbers
because it talks about groups, and you have a group, and they think you're talking about them.
It might be. It might be. But I'll just pop this up on the screen, and it just
maybe they were just trolls, demonic trolls to begin with.
There might be, but now the thing is, it says the moment people form a group, they become stupid, and that was not what I'm saying. It's what Gustave Le Bon said in 1895 in a book called The Crowd. Now, I'd never heard of him before until a couple of days ago, and he came up on Telegram channel, I think. And then, Steve, you have heard of him, and far away. So,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not the world's leading expert on Le Bon or his book, The Crowd, which, I mean, his book I used to promote in practically loads of my earlier presentation work, along with several other books of a similar nature, simply because some of even though I think it was from something like 1897 or something, the book it was
1895.
Was it all right? It was quite an old book, but the stuff is still applicable today because it talks about human psychology and sociology, which really, well, if you understand the dynamics of how the human mind works, which is essentially half of the leading two components of what occultism is about. Occultism is about understanding hidden knowledge relating to the human mind, the psyche, i.e. psychology, sociology, and also how the universe works through, not just through the physical laws, but also the spiritual laws, which affect the dynamics of how nature actually manifests in this realm that we perceive. But Le Bon was a polymath. That means he was a little bit brighter than what I was as a soldier, because actually he himself was actually in the army. I think he was in the French army during the French-Prussian Wars or something along those lines, in the medical corps, I believe. But he understood how the human mind works. And if anyone's familiar with the likes of what's he called, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who talk about stupidity theory. So it's a similar kind of, I'm not going to say it's the same, but it's a similar kind of observation. Realize that, as you said at the start of your show, when people are involved in group dynamics, a group think kind of takes over and people become less able to become independent of mind. And of course, again, this is why I obviously highlight occult knowledge, because occult knowledge allows a person to become independent of their own mind, to master their own mind. And when people can do that in wider society at a larger scale, well, that gives the ability for peace and freedom to become more
spot on. Apparent. Also, there's a big difference, I think, between community and groups, because you can be an individual in a community, but in a group you less can be an individual. And most of the big achievements in life, major steps forward, have been achieved by individuals, not groups. Just think about it. Henry Ford, Model T Ford, and all these different people that have changed things and discovered things have all been individuals, generally boffins in the back room, as they call them. You know,
it's kind of like everybody's a sheep, and then you have a leader who's a shepherd that guides them. Wouldn't you say? Because it's
possibly,
biblical,
yes.
that most people, all we like sheep, have gone astray. It's prophetic in a way.
I was watching a documentary. I've seen several documentaries on the Enigma code, how they cracked it, and a bloke who was doing the Enigma code, he said, "You've never met such a bunch of individual nutters in all your life." He said, "A complete bunch of oddballs and weirdos, but they had a sort of brain that could crack these codes." And as a woman said that, she said, "I felt perfectly safe amongst them," but she said, "They're all as nutty as a fruitcake." She said, but they're all individuals. They're fruitcakes, but individuals. And this is the thing. And you notice that governments, now they're groups, and look how stupid the people are in governments. And what do they try and push? Teamwork, got to do this, got to do that. But I don't want to probe too much into your time in the forces, but I would have thought the specialist work that you did, you had to be individuals to do it. You worked as a team, but you're individuals. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, massively. Yeah. I mean, to be quite honest, if I was in what we used to term the Green Army, which is, and again, I'm not trying to be derogatory to fellow soldiers, even though I've offered every soldier in Britain into fisticuffs just to knock some sense into them. But other than that, I'm not trying to sort of degrade soldiers by the various jobs that they did, but in the army there is the Green Army, the sort of normal standard infantry units, etc., who are very much regimented in the way that they think and act, very much order followers. They'll obey authority, very logical in their progression. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that they don't do a good job. And when I say a good job, I don't mean a morally good job. I mean an efficient job under the role that they're given. But they're not really paid to think outside the box. That's one slight difference. We were paid to think outside the box. And when that in itself is very Masonic in its inception, because thinking outside the box is essentially the same as circle and the square, which is a very significant theme in many secret societies, such as Freemasonry, who use, and I'm sure most people will be aware, they use the compass and the square as part of their insignia. Their branding is the compass, and of course the compass is a device that, and you'll know, that you can draw a circle with. And if you can circle the square, well, the square, obviously the ruler of the square is something that you can draw a square with. A square is what? It's very rigid. It's got very precise measurements and angles. It's logical. It's precise. But a circle, well, what is a circle? A circle, just by the very nature of the mathematics that that envelop it, such as pi, 22/7. I mean, that number in itself, 22, is very particular. And I know
today's date.
Yeah, exactly. 22 days since the start of the conflict in Iran. It's also the 22nd of March, and I'll probably mention why that is relevant later on. But
that's interesting.
A circle, of course, is not precise. It's hard to, you can't determine the exact nature of a circle just through the fact that it's what's the number? It's everlasting. I forget the exact term that you use. But there's so many.
Was pi r squared?
When you determine the circumference, the number value goes on till infinity.
Oh yes, it does. It goes on to infinity. But the thing is, I mean, Mark Antony has just said here, Gustave Le Bon, quote, "The masses have never thirsted after truth. Whoever can supply them illusions is easily their master. However, whoever attempts to destroy their illusions is always their victim." Now, that's
exactly right,
isn't it? What a brilliant bloke! All those years ago as well. And you get that is genius. That is, the French are bloody clever. A lot of, and also that chap that we was talking about the other week, who is I can never remember his name. Stupidity. He looked into stupidity. But
Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
That's right. Thanks, mate. That's right. But anyway, Matilda says somebody always stands out in a crowd. We got Aunt Sally. Hi, folks. Hello, Aunt Sally. And we got DJ B2. Hi, everybody. Stolen Hellcat says, I only measure things in cubits. Blimey, does he walk like an Egyptian? Now, Matilda says, this is pi 3.1444444 recurring. Yes, right. I think you're right. Yes. And Exo says, I never grasped geometry. Well, someone described the World War I as death by geometry, didn't they? Because all the gun in place was out to work out by geometry. And that's it. But really, no, it rules us geometry, and that's what navigation is basically geometry. But when you look at groups, political parties do have bloody idiots in them. And it's the supporters that I find very immature. Oh, we got this, we got that. I mean, have you started getting your leaflets through the doors for the local council elections, or are you having them where you are, Steve?
If I mean, I've not noticed them, to be honest. I mean, obviously they'll go straight in the trash.
They did actually, yes. But I got a nice glossy one with Farage on it, and I thought, what's this? But that's it. But the trouble is they're glossy. You can't use them as toilet paper. That's the problem, isn't it? They make very nice toilet
You can
paper.
try.
But it's the same crap refurbished. But it's refurbished shit, isn't it? Excuse my language. That's all it is on this. On what you get through with these pamphlets. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But when you look at these people that get to the top of their game, like look at Trump, for example. Could you,
Do we have to?
I, or anybody sit there and brag openly about the brilliant things we've done? I'd feel embarrassed. I couldn't do it.
Hey, what about these people that sit and brag about how many people they've killed?
Oh,
that is, to me, is the most evil thing that anyone could boast
Trump
about.
did.
Yeah.
Trump did.
Oh,
But that ship
any
that was
of them.
unarmed.
Any of them.
Oh, we prefer to sink them. We didn't really take them prisoners. Yeah. It's like a child. To me, people brag when they haven't achieved anything. And I've got a feeling America hasn't really achieved very much. I don't know. Again, we don't know what's happening. But I'll tell you something that is missing this time in this war. Do you remember during the Gulf War, we had pictures of missiles hitting things? Do you remember that, Steve? Do you remember that? The Schwarzkopf's saying there and saying, well, you've just hit this bridge and blown 9 barrels of crap out of this car. And all this. We're seeing none of that this time, are we? Strange. Nobody hasn't mentioned anything like that. And the only thing we've seen is supposed to, it's weird.
Isn't it when we have those whistleblowers that, what was the name of that Swedish guy that went away for that time? He was in the embassy in Ecuador. I forget his name because he's kind of.
I can't remember his name.
Remember, but he supposedly leaked some Reuters press people that were killed in a raid in Iraq. And that's the reason they went after him for war crimes, for just leaking footage of something that happened that was a war crime. I think that's kind of like kind of why we don't see it. Is because if it is what they're, there's a law, say for instance in Tel Aviv, where you can't record or you'll be punished with prison time if you witness a crime and or witness a missile attack. And you happen to film it and put it out on social media, they'll go after you and put you in prison for it. So maybe that's one of the tools that they're using to keep it all quiet.
Well, it seems like that. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find that bloke's name. It's on the tip of my tongue.
It's just come up. Julian Assange.
Julian Assange, thanks, mate. That's brilliant. And
the one where Pamela Anderson went and visited him while he was in.
That's right.
Where's
he buggered off to now? Is he back in Australia or something? I don't know.
I have no idea. I haven't heard from him. But when he had his own show, it was called the Julian Assange Show, and the first episode, the first episode he put out there was an interview with the leader of Hezbollah at the time. And the one that was murdered recently, a year or so ago, a couple of years ago now, Nasrallah. I just found that very interesting that he had gotten an interview with Nasrallah, and then he's let out of prison and nothing happens. And it's the same with like Jonathan Pollard. He was a spy for the Israelis, and he was imprisoned in America because he blurted out the names of all of these spies that America had in the Soviet Union and got a whole bunch of Americans killed as a consequence so that he could set it up so that the Soviet Jews could then migrate to Israel and get out of the Soviet Union when it was collapsing. And
that's right. Apparently,
Trump pardoned him.
Really?
He's the most damaging spy that we had, and he pardoned him because Netanyahu wanted it.
Yeah.
And then now he's there saying that people like Tucker Carlson who report on this stuff in a negative way should be locked up. It's like, well, I know. It's a circus.
It is a circus. That's right. And now Exo says, I asked for change for a £10 note today at local garage, and I'll say lady because it's not politically correct, say bird, at the till said, we don't see £5 notes these days. So here's 10 coins. Oh, I didn't know that. I've got a couple of fivers in my pocket. Yes. Yes, thanks, Matilda. That's right. It's Julian Assange. Yeah. It's terrible when you can see the face, but you can't think of the name. Stephen Truthseeker said every 20 years, the same group of people get brainwashed to go to war for the same reasons, like weapons of mass destruction, regime change, oil, etc. Yes. And
it's because they have a method, like an occult method that they keep using over and over again that people never, they use it in intervals of time so that you have, most people can't recall, what they did yesterday practically. So when they use it, they're just using these same tricks over and over again, and people fall for it. But then again, we're all like sheep. So you can preach to the heavens, and no one's gonna be even capable of thinking. Like Steve said, they're all in their protocols and following protocols, but they're not independent thinkers.
Well, that's right. Now, Exos said. Now, I'm sorry. Stolen Hellcat says. Tomorrow the Marines go in Iran, to take that island. I believe it's a strategic island.
Diego Garcia?
No. It's one in the Strait of Hormuz.
Which one?
I don't know what island it is, but it's
okay,
an island. But quite honestly, don't they think the Iranians have got it all figured out? But apparently all 5,000 of... hang on, where are we? All 5,000 of them, apparently. Good luck. Bloody hell.
I mean, if that is the case, I mean, that's news to me. But I mean, I don't watch the news. I
heard talk about that. They'd have to sit and fly them in an Osprey and also fly them in. Drop.
I mean, why would they tell the enemy first of all? Surely they wouldn't do that. They keep quiet about it. I mean, surely if you're going to do a military operation, you keep it stum, don't you?
I mean, I'm not disputing that. That's the intention that they've got. I mean, if that's what they are doing, it doesn't surprise me because, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, today is the 22nd day of the conflict. It's also March the 22nd, and as I mentioned earlier, March the 22nd alludes to the number 322, the third month, the 22nd day, which is a very particular date in the Satanic holy calendar. So it's today, actually, for those who weren't aware, is 22nd of March, which is the start of what's known as the Satanic season of sacrifice. And if anyone was to look back in history, especially 6 years ago to the year 2020, the start of the Satanic season of sacrifice was when Lockdown 1 was announced and initiated. So
interesting.
This is...
the screen's locked again. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Sorry for my rude interruption. I'm going to change feeds. So
okay.
just
Steve,
a few seconds.
Steve, have you ever heard of Menachem Mendel Schneerson?
Nope, I can't say I have.
Okay, he was a Ukrainian Jew, and he was considered by the Chabad Lubavitch to be their Messiah. And he died in, I think it was around 2000, the year 2000. And I think it's his birthday, they celebrate every year according to the lunar calendar that the Jews use. It's called the 11th of Nisan, which coincided with the whole coronavirus lockdown announcement. And then they also, on top of it, announced that they'd be closing down all of the churches, which was unprecedented. They've never done that before. Been able to close down every church and say you can't go to church because of COVID-19. It's insane when you think about it. It is
insane
that they were able to have that much control over the media, for one.
Yeah,
that is the source of their control is the media. If you can control the media and the minds of people, you can control what they think, what they do, because most people, like you say, they just follow the crowd. It's the lowest common denominator. The common denominator controls the crowd.
I don't know if it's the same in the States, but it used to be law in this country that if a criminal was on the run and they run into a church, the police couldn't follow them in.
Sanctuary.
Inside the church.
That's called the law. Yes. It's been ancient.
Yes.
That goes back to pre-Christ days that you'd go and you'd have sanctuary.
Well, they'd be lucky to find a church that's open nowadays, because most of them are boarded
Well,
up.
they don't recognize that the people, the baddies that are in charge now, don't even recognize that. Look at what they did to Gaza. They destroyed churches and mosques and
horrendous
temples.
And I think that's done more to destroy the
make us forget that God's on our side.
Yeah,
it's done. That's what they do. It's demoralizing.
That hasn't done much for Israeli PR, has it? Because they've been surviving on PR most of the time. But Exo says Christians have become wuzzies in this country, in England. Yes,
in England.
Yeah.
Well,
I think in Britain,
in America, in America, in a way, there are groups that aren't, but in general, it seems that especially the clerics, you follow the money. Who's paying them? That's usually who determines who gets the support and who gets thrown under the bus.
And also the political agenda in this country for the Church of England, and I don't know. I think in many ways it's probably the same with all the churches, but Catholic and whoever. Now, Stephen Truthseeker says, I think they're going to put limits on how far you can travel by car.
Yeah, why? Just so we don't communicate with people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like it. I haven't heard anything about it, but I wouldn't be at all surprised they do that.
I mean, I could generalize. I mean, that's a good point from Stephen. I mean, I couldn't say categorically, are they going to limit what we're going to do with the car? But I can definitely categorically confirm that the government's whole sole purpose is to erode rights, freedoms, and liberties. I mean, that's the whole purpose of their purpose of being, is to take away our freedoms, rights, and liberties. What I think, I mean, somebody, I don't know who it was, but mentioned about Christians being wussers or something along those lines. I mean, all right, thanks. I mean, I would extend that to practically the entire planet are a bunch of lily-livered pansies. From what I see, I'm generalizing here, but what I'm seeing is there's very little backbone, because there's not many people in the face of the planet who will stand up to having themselves trashed by an entity called the government. If people are still in fear, then they need to grow a pair, basically, because the government are just human beings. All the human beings in the government are doing is mind controlling other human beings, using but they're using strategies such as they've learned from people like Gustav Le Bon, people like Sigmund Freud, people like Adolf. I don't know if I can mention his word. He wrote a very particular book when he was in his little stint in prison. Yeah,
my cafeteria. My cafeteria, wasn't it? Something about a cafe you ran. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
But Le Bon actually inspired that work. Le Bon's understanding was part of the principles behind works by the likes of Sigmund Freud, etc. I mean, let's not forget as well. What's he called again? Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity.
Bonhoeffer. I've just put Le Bon up there again. There he is. So that's the fellow we're talking about.
I mean, I would definitely underline that word "stupid," because that's essentially what people have become. I was stupid, so I'm not trying to let myself off the hook here. I was in the military for the best part of, over 25 years. So I was probably the most stupid person on the face of the planet. But when people wake up, there he is, yeah. When people wake up, which I'd like to think this is where the truth and freedom movement are, they've woken up to the fact that they're getting the rights and freedoms curtailed, and they're getting brutalized, and all they're going to face is a future of further increase in tyranny. When are they actually going to realize that, is the penny going to drop with these guys, and they're actually going to start doing something? Because at the minute, I see very, very little in terms of a positive response. Government is broken. If anyone thinks that the government is the way forward, then there's a political solution to the problems we're facing. Well, it's government and political solutions that created the tyranny that we're all facing. And as a very wise man, Einstein once said, you can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. That means people have to grow in consciousness and do something about it.
But at the same time, you have the thinkers and the philosophers like Aristotle that said that basically what politics boils down to is what a group of people contemplates. So at a certain point, you have to be able to have crowd cohesion in order to prevent wars from happening and people going along like we are now. So what point do we have a crowd of people where it's an ideal situation like you're talking about, where everybody wakes up, if that's the right word for it, and puts away the current form of government?
I mean, I think that's a really good point, but why the current form of government? Well, it's not the current form of government, it's just the government.
Any form?
So any form of government, because the word government will always mean mind control. So if people are under mind control, as people like Gustav Le Bon has quite cunningly said, when people become part of a crowd, groupthink develops and they end up becoming stupid, as did Bonhoeffer, who coined the term stupidity theory, because he went through World War II and got executed as a result of his observations, realizing that people had become cowardly muppets servants of the state and who couldn't think independently. I mean, psychopaths. So this is the thing. Government is always going to attract psychopaths, because you have to be a psychopath to want to have control and demand authority over another individual. Thomas Jefferson believed and said during the Declaration of Independence that all men are born equal. Again, that's an absolute in nature. All men are born equal. That's not just his term, but this is wise men from the dawn of mankind have always known that all men are created equal. Therefore, psychopaths are the only people who are going to rise to let's just say the top of any sort of authority organization. But psychopaths can't rule a nation of people who are capable of free thought, which is why they need a human management team called the government to step in. So the solution to this is for everyone to become king of their own destiny. And I use the occult as an example, because part of occultism incorporates something called natural law, which is the laws of God, the laws inherent to nature, the laws in creation. Not my laws, not my decrees, not my beliefs. These are inherent for everybody, regardless of race, nationality, time of day, time of year. This is inherent to everybody at all times till the end of time.
Well, what force keeps that in check then from the
psychopaths,
the psychopaths from taking over? That's what I
get your point. Well, the point that psychopaths can only work if people are incapable of free thought. If people were capable of free thought, they will become culturally their sort of servitude will become culturally abhorrent to them. So if people realize that, wait a minute, we're all created equal, but we've got a bunch of psychopaths who not only do horrible things to children in Caribbean islands, they're also dropping ordnance and, screwing the world up and fixing oil prices, trying to curtail your freedom of travel and all the rest of the things that they're doing under Agenda 30 and such like. People need to realize that the word government means mind control, and government is an organization that is fabricated upon illusion. There is no such thing as authority with government. It's only what we, as people without the ability to establish a free and open mind, capable of independent thought, allow this institution to do, because we are too stupid and lazy to do it for ourselves.
Spot on.
So
absolutely
essentially, what we need to do is realize that this magical power, and I'm going to use this little, if that comes up, I'm going to do that. It's a magical power. It does not exist. The authority that government claim to have is a fairy tale illusion, a magical power that only works when people are stupid enough to accept it. It doesn't exist in reality. So the only way it exists is because we have adopted a diseased state of mind. We need to assimilate the works of the likes of Le Bon, Sigmund Freud, and Bonhoeffer, and realize that, oh, wait a minute. And just as I did, you asked earlier, when did the penny drop for me? The penny dropped for me when I was in the army and I realized I was just a clown in uniform. I was, and what was I doing it for? I was just doing it for the money, because the political solutions completely eroded away when I realized it was all a load of absolute bullshit.
You said perfectly. I mean, but the thing is, Steve, is that when you look at examples of where people do things themselves, a perfect example is eBay. Now, I'm not praising or anything like that, but I choose to use eBay to sell something I don't want or buy something that I want. But I choose to do that. But if eBay was run by the government, it'd be compulsory to use it. This is the difference. And if the eBay I don't fancy going on there, there's loads of other ones that I could choose from. So this is freedom of choice. And what gets me with the government, everything is compulsory and everything is to screw money out of you. For what? That is the question. For what? What are they screwing money out of us? For what? Because it ain't obviously going to us. It's going somewhere else. And it's the biggest criminal organisation in the bleeding world.
Yeah.
But, I mean, regarding church, then we got to...
I was just going to say, well, you've got one tyrant in charge. What are you going to do to wrestle away the power from that tyrant? That's
the problem. That is the big problem. I mean, you look at what happened in Rome. I mean, the what do they call them?
You mean Roman days, like the Roman Empire?
That's right, the Roman Empire. Caesar and all that. Hail Caesar and all that. Oh, these people thought they could walk on water. They were gods. Oh, they're fantastic. I mean, I would say that probably Trump thinks he could probably walk on water if he could. You part waves.
There are a lot of parallels to that. There's nothing new under the sun when it comes to government and the problems of what's taking place. Is there a time that you see in history that was probably the best, or has it always been this way?
No, I don't think it has. I mean, I think there's little islands of freedom that we've had. And when you look at the Victorian times, yes, there's a lot of poverty. There's children starving. There was, lots. But people were doing a lot of good. And they were very inventive. And we had less government in those days. And again, since the turn of the last century, we've had more and more and more government encroaching upon us. And there's a theory, I don't know how true it is, that Edward, that was in the Edwardian times, was actually done in on the authority of the government because he was waking up
Edward
to
the Seventh?
Edward the Seventh. He died
1910, 1911?
Around about that time, yes. They reckon he was done in because he was actually going for the government and saying they got too much power.
Yeah, he was also converting to Catholicism toward the end. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Father Leonard
Dirty Bertie
wrote a book. He wrote a book called London is a Place, because he had studied in London as a Jesuit, and he was one of the last good Jesuits as far as I can tell. There's some good ones, but not near like they used to be. But yeah, on his deathbed, the King of England, Edward VII, the rule was that only the Bishop of Canterbury could visit him on his deathbed, but he asked for a Catholic priest instead of the Bishop of Canterbury.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a bit like Guido Fawkes, who was a Catholic, and you couldn't get gunpowder for a lot of money because it was all fiercely controlled by the government. But somehow he got the gunpowder.
And you look at the early church in the Book of Acts. It talks about how the early Christians kept everything in common, and they looked out for the common good amongst themselves. And if someone had an abundance of something good, they would share that with everybody and try and distribute that as much as they could, to where even the poorest people were given accounting for. If the poor aren't being taken care of, then the rich have no right to to their goods. And it's kind of the same situation now. We should be going after these wealthy people who have way more wealth than they could ever spend in a lifetime or many lifetimes, and instituting a wealth tax on that instead of taxing the poor, tax the people beyond a certain amount of money or property.
I don't even believe in tax, though. I mean, what is tax? It's
but
theft.
At the same time, do you think it's right that you have these multi-billionaires, or like Elon Musk, who's almost a trillionaire?
He's government. I mean, what now? Yeah. What you've got, government is industrialists and usury scammers. That's basically what government is.
You're talking about votes for them. eBay and PayPal went hand in hand with each other. I remember being on eBay back when it started, back in the 90s. And PayPal was right there with it until they split them up as a monopoly. They could, it's just like they were getting too much power. But that was Elon Musk's big claim to fame, was PayPal back in the day. And that was tied directly to eBay's success, because you could send money orders and that kind of thing, but the new digital, where everything's done online, makes it much quicker and much easier and convenient.
I mean, I buy stuff from China and it comes by rail. And, you can actually plot it, see where it is. It's going, it's there today. It's there. There it is. It's quite fun, actually.
Does it go through Russia?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff on the Trans-Siberian Railroad.
So the war in the Middle East, they said, it's going to take a long time to get stuff from China. No. It's going across by rail. But what I was going to say,
that's the Belt and Road thing.
That's it.
That they build, and that it's a big scramble right now to get the property that's going to occupy, and I think that's another reason for this war. Because you only go from Asia to Europe and Africa through Iran or Russia. Otherwise, you're taking sea routes in the Caspian and the Indian Ocean.
Takes a month of Sundays that way, though. But I mean, it's so quick. I mean, I've actually had something through in 4 days from China by rail. It's not bad. And it's going by night as well. But what I was going to say is with Guido Fawkes, because he bought the gunpowder near where I live, because the gunpowder mills are at Waltham Abbey. And he was allowed, they turned a blind eye to him putting loads and loads of gunpowder underneath the House of Commons. And that was a set-up job. And the reason why,
it was an early false flag.
Yes, right, to turn people against Catholicism.
Oh, yeah.
That's the reason why, because he was a Catholic.
Well, because they don't want people unifying. Yeah. And they want to keep subjugated groups from communicating with each other. That's the notion of psychological warfare, is preventing subjugated peoples from communicating with each other so that they could throw off their masters.
Now, Aunt Sally said the churches are mainly apostate. The Bible tells us God doesn't dwell in buildings made with man's hands. Yes, that's quite correct.
Well, men dwell in buildings, so men are, we're children of God. And I guess the way I see it is it's a great thing, actually, to be able to go to church and you're with other people and you're not isolated. And yeah, you're right. It doesn't matter where you are. God's every, he created everything, so he's omnipresent. So, but at the same time, this notion where they want us all isolated from each other and not communicating, I think it's an antidote to that, to get together with people in communion and be able to come at least one day a week and say, hey, I'm here, we'll put down our enmity between each other and worship. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I mean, for me, if people who, and no disrespect to anybody listening who goes to church, but if people in churches were plotting the downfall of their abusers and launching some sort of proactive means in which to do so, even if that means the use of garden implements or other types of things that can have some sort of effect upon the flesh and blood of other human beings who want to act as tyrants, then I think church is an excellent idea. But somehow I don't think that's the case.
Well, the problem being is that's what they wanted. The people who crucified Jesus wanted a political Messiah to come and create this world empire that he then could bring in paradise. And instead, they were given a suffering Messiah who was subject to them, and he didn't raise his hand to them. He could have, but he didn't, and he was subjected to death. But that wasn't the end. He died and rose again from the dead, And so it leads the way. God gives us a choice to be evil because he knows he doesn't want us to be automaton robots that
If
don't
that was
have
the
a choice
case,
in
then
life.
why do many Christians and other religions, for that matter, why do many of these religious folk choose knowingly to be evil? I mean, for example, tax is theft. Even if you pay 1% of tax, it is theft. It is still thieving the products of another man's labor to
Usury.
give to. Yeah, it's a scam. So all of tax, every last dollar made from tax is a scam. It's also immoral because it's a form of theft.
Because they're tempted by those earthly pleasures in life, because we all have that temptation to want to be master of other people. We have this
So what
lust
about
to
the
mastery.
ones who are paying it, though? Then this is the thing. I mean, I could ask. I mean, if I was to ask today, if anyone wants to kindly donate me, and I'll call it tax, I'll just call it tax. If anyone wants to give me a percentage of tax
tribute
to my or whatever to me for nothing. In fact, I'll tell you what. I'll polish your shoes or wash your car as a token of my gratitude. But if anybody wants to give me 20% of their earnings, I will gratefully take it. I'm sure you'd probably agree that only a complete imbecile would actually fall for that and actually obey that ridiculous notion. Yet this is what, and again, I'm generalizing here. I'll use the term religious folk, because religious folk will pay tax without even thinking about it. And as far as I'm concerned, tax is theft, therefore it's immoral. So therefore, surely anybody with religious sentiments would have seen through that complete nonsense and would have stopped years ago. In fact, they would be warning their entire congregation. But sadly, that doesn't seem to happen.
No, and then that's partly because we're all able to be tempted by these earthly things, like desire for money and gain and power over people. Everybody, it doesn't matter. You're in a crowd of people. The crowd of people are the ones that desire those things, and they're running on their gut.
I mean, I agree, and that leads me back to the point I made earlier by Einstein, where you cannot solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it in the first place. So that means that in order to see ourselves or free ourselves from the problem that we find ourselves in, the answer to it ultimately means that a degree of heightened consciousness needs to be part of that equation. Now, I'll also mention another element to that, because, I mean, combat was my specialist subject. And at the moment, I would like to think that the truth and freedom community, amongst others, must be 100% consciously aware by now that we are victims of a psychological warfare operation from the health emergency and beyond, but up to including all of that. Surely if anybody in the freedom community knows that was a complete pantomime, a psyop. We are more specifically being engaged with what's known as cognitive warfare. This is what's happening in the world. It's known as cognitive warfare. There's elements of hybrid warfare and elements of information and psychological warfare thrown in there for good measure. Because most people have completely just stuck their heads in the sand, and they've done absolutely nothing to resist this ongoing onslaught. What's happened? We've now entered into kinetic warfare, a physical war, which is embraced almost the entirety of the Middle East, and everybody on the planet is going to be affected by it one way or another. Certainly when it comes to production costs for resources such as fuel, everybody's going to suffer from that. Why? Because we're too dumb, we're too weak, we're too stupid to actually defend ourselves from tyranny. So what I will say is, in terms of combat and tyranny, if we resist our abusers in a way that they allow us to, i.e., let's go on another pointless and pathetic protest march, let's go and file a letter of strong words to our local MP, or other pathetic, piss-poor responses, then we will be slaves for the rest of our entire lives.
Yeah, I think the gathering of people, though, in a church, for instance, is a good thing because it gets you on the same idea of prayer. You're basically, your prayer is you desire something, some form of action to happen, and when you have a common prayer where you're contemplating the same thing with your neighbors, where it's like, we're gonna go against injustice when we see it, and this is why. That's what we need, is that awareness amongst ourselves that action needs to be taken, not just individually but by a group of people, because we do need something to counteract that, because when the next lockdown happens, they're just going to be sheep and do whatever the so-called authority figure tells them to do, and everybody's a good little boy and girl. They get their jabs and they're,
but
they die or whatever they're going to do.
That's right, but all the religions were for having it, as far as I know, the main ones, not all, but
there were people that weren't going along with it.
No,
I mean
there was
the media wants you to be attentive to only the people that they want you to focus on, and not everybody was like that. I mean, I know good people, like Father Maudsley was one in your country that stood up against it, and he paid a price with his bishop taking away his parish from him as a consequence. And you don't hear about things of that nature. And then there were other priests and lay people that were against it, and it's just like, but you don't get the media attention. Who's out there, Food for Thought Radio, this kind of stuff, yes. But who's doing it that you get attention from it?
There was a march through London against the lockdowns, and there was, I think it's nunneries, a load of nuns are outside their nunnery, clapping and cheering the people on, because they were against the lockdown and they were against the jabs. So it's surprising, but when you, I always think that when it comes to religion, and I mean, I've laid my colours to the mast. Both my parents were Church of England, but I wasn't brought up religious. I mean, my dad wasn't, my mum was a little bit, but I've never read the Bible, never went to Sunday school, and the only time I went into a church was for a wedding, christening, or funeral, and that was it, really. But the way that gets me with religion is so many religions have got the attitude that my religion's better than your religion. And this is what's causing a lot of the problems throughout the world, because
then they don't work together as a consequence.
Well, it's respect for other people's beliefs, and that is the big problem. I mean, when you look at Christianity has done a lot of good in the world. So has a lot of other religions done a lot of good, but also a lot of bad as well.
Islam has a very, very hard focus against riba, or usury, as it's called.
That's right.
And I think that Christians and Muslims can collaborate and do something about what's going on if they just talk to each other and don't fear each other, because that's what they want. They're crazy Muslims. They're going to be terrorists and chop off heads and all this kind of stuff, and it's just to get people fearful from talking to people who don't look like them, have their same customs, and were born in the same circumstances they were. It's all this, I'm better than you, right. And then we're all in the same boat in that we're all dispossessed of our property, and yet at the same time we're supposed to be bickering with them. It's just, it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work. We need to be collaborating and finding out how we can share. You need to
collaborate on something common, don't we? That's the secret. Exactly. Because let's face it, certainly the three Abrahamic religions and the folk within these establishments are going to be at loggerheads with each other for the next 100,000 years, if not longer, because they'll never collaborate on a shared agreement on anything. All of them are slaves. All of them are under, and no disrespect, all of them are under severe levels of control, usually through mind control, because this is how it works. It enslaves people because they can't then understand and come to a common agreement where they can action or take the necessary action to rid themselves from the controlling entities that are doing these divide and conquer strategies, or the psychological warfare, or the cognitive warfare that we're faced with. So, I mean, to cut a long story short, there's not a religious solution to the problems we face. There is a spiritual problem, and there's a spiritual solution, and that spiritual solution, therefore, is the things that can draw human beings to become king of their own destinies by understanding their own sovereign rights and freedoms and liberties. And no religion's ever going to do that, because, as well as you know, you sign yourself to the particular order or directives of the church or the religion, and you don't then become independent and free of mind as a result.
Well, that mind control is, to a large extent, money control, because you're after the manna, the filthy lucre. You know, once that gets involved in anything, that becomes a driving force for people, and it corrupts people's integrity and their dignity. Whereas they're at the outset, these institutions are set up to be looking after the poor and after their dignity. And not just trying to break it down and taking advantage of people. That's what it was meant for, and at least in words.
But surely, if anyone has trust in God, faith in Jesus, faith in any other religious entity, or that system, well, surely that would take precedence, because that is an overarching principle. So surely the overarching truth and principle behind their religion, let's just say, would take precedence over any other principle. So that includes money, because money is just another religion. You've got to have the belief that money is necessary in order to have a free and liberal society. Yes, it's a very helpful oil that lubricates the mechanism of society, but it's not. I mean, I've been skint for 6 years. I still get by. I've not had a proper job in over 6 years. I'm not, and I'm broke. But I'm not even bothered, because I don't allow money to rule my destiny. It's not a principle. A principle, and somebody mentioned earlier, I think it was Asperger's fudge. And again, I'm only paraphrasing something that he mentioned.
I'll try and find it, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great point, and it's probably one that holds a lot of people back. And I'm not saying that he, for one, is held back, but he mentioned the word principle, and he also mentioned that anarchy, which means no masters, incidentally. So if you've got no masters, you've got no slaves. But he said, anarchy sounds reasonable, but then what would organize society? And this is the thing. If we put how do we organize society as our number one principle, and we don't put the truth, or we don't put freedom as a principle, then these are not our principles, are they? Our principle is based upon money. It's based upon delusions. It's based upon allowing tyranny to take foothold. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the world will be an awesome place if everyone became an anarchist. But what I am saying is, well, guess what? You wouldn't have a bunch of psychopaths who also cannibalize young children and then go and decimate people in the Middle East with the money that they've stolen from the likes of you and I and, people across the world to go and do these things. I mean, if anyone's looking into what's happening in the world now and they realize the likes of the health emergency was a complete fabrication, and they realize that there's nothing but a usury scam, and the banking cartel who's generating what's going on in the Middle East, everyone must know that by now. It shouldn't take me as a soldier to tell people this stuff. It's a complete money-making scam in order to tyrannize people further, to take away our freedoms and liberties away further. If we can't come to that conclusion, then we have got no principles. And what we need to do, if we want to unify on something, well, we need to unify on the truth, and we need to unify on principles. So that at the moment,
I agree.
I'm going to step away for a moment. I'll be right back.
But
thank you.
What I was going to say is that when it comes to principles, I mean, I had a girlfriend who was an anthropologist, and even what we would rate as savages have got principles. For example, when the hunters come back on many tribes from a day's hunt, they make sure that the women and children are fed first and the hunters are fed the last. and they get the pick. The women get the pick of the best of the meat and anything like that, and the hunters get afterwards. And that is a sort of a masculine thing. But what gets me with religion, and people say, well, I prefer faith. I mean, my view is that there's an energy. I don't know what the energy is, but there is definitely an energy there. And it's for other people to decide whether I'm spiritual or not. But what gets me about different religions is that, for example, look at Palestine. Now, I think it was 30%, I'm not sure, 20 or 30% are Christians. And they're praying to God, and you've got Muslims praying to their God. And then what happens in Gaza? They not only get killed, but you get little children that are born disabled. You get terrible things, and I'm afraid that this is what actually turns me against faith and religion, and that is nobody can answer me. The question is, how comes an innocent child can be born disabled? Nobody can answer me that, or the suffering that goes on. I mean, although on the other hand, there is someone on Facebook, there's a chap who's severely disabled, who was born that way, American, and he's very religious. He found religion, and that helps him with his disablement. So that's where religion has done a lot of good. But nobody can actually answer that question. There's a God above. How can he allow that to happen? I just don't see it.
There's part of religion that can be answered, and I mean, I will first explain what the word means. I mean, it's got several different origins in Greek and Latin, but the word religare is a common one. Religare from religion means to hold back, to thwart from progress, to bind to either a series of dogmatic vows or to erroneous notions. And to what's one of the biggest things that people of a religious bent are held back from? They're held back from an esoteric understanding, and they are force-fed an exoteric understanding. That means exoteric is like a general, open to everybody. Esoteric is open to a select few, the initiates of cults or systems. People who understand what these allegories mean in finer detail, not the fairy tale notions that there was a dude who got nailed to a cross and he was stuck between two thieves. If people are still on that fairy tale exoteric notion, they are held back. Now, I'm not going to be prattling on about esoteric allegory and what, let's just say, the Christian faith is about, but I mean, it's well worth. I would definitely recommend people who are still confused over religious issues to look further into that. And that's a body of work known as the occult or alchemy, the esotericism. These things aren't very well known in society, and what happens as a result? Well, society suffers because of their own foolish or lack of understanding, their ignorance, essentially. But part of religion that is, or I mean, you mentioned before that you believe that there is some sort of force. Yes, there is a force or an energy. So that energy can be defined. That energy is what is missing out of probably all religious contexts, unless, of course, one was to study something like esoteric Christianity or the esoteric natures. That is the Hermetic principles. These are 7 key concepts that form the foundation of how the universe formulates. And I mean, just to list them: mentalism, everything is the mind. It's a mental form of creation. Correspondence, as above, so below, some people might be familiar with. Vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender. So these are the Hermetic principles, but one of the most, you could say they're all important, but one of the ones that is quite worth having a good understanding of is the law of cause and effect. So cause and effect, everything in the world is, you could say, everything that happens is an effect. And that effect has to start somewhere. It has to start from a cause. Well, where do causes start? All causation occurs first in the mind. That means if we want to create something or destroy something, it first has to be established in our mind. And then what we do is we drive from our heart, we put emotion behind our creative thoughts, and then we apply the force that from our fingertips to do whatever that action might be, whether it's create or destroy. So what's happening is, I mean, today is March the 22nd, the Satanic season of sacrifice. It aligns with the spring equinox. The spring equinox is when we do what? We plant seeds. So what do the government do? Bearing in mind they are dark occultists who employ chaos sorcery. Well, what are they doing? They are planting seeds on the season of sacrifice, ready to be to come to fruition. And what's their seeds to generate? It's to generate chaos, disorder, and control over the masses. And what do we do? Well, because we're dumb, and I'm generalizing here because I know not everybody is still what I would class to be combat and effective. There's some people behind the scenes know what's going on at a high level and they're doing things about it. But what do we do about it? Generally, we just do whatever we're told by the government. And even the truth movement are still doing this. Religious people are still doing what they're told. They're not following their principles at all. They're not following faith in Jesus. They're not following faith in God. If they were, they'd be following natural law, because this is what the laws of God are. The Hermetic principles are the laws of God expressed through nature. So if we understand cause and effect, which is one of the laws of creation, designed by the Creator, designed by God, we would be following that understanding and not following government, because government means mind control, and mind control generates and causes slavery.
Yes, I agree. And now Lowland one has said, when it is not a loving God, in my honest opinion, this is because Satan has got into the process somewhere along. Very good point. I do believe in demons.
Well,
I do believe in them.
Can I say that's a good point, but it's actually based in, I mean, and again, no disrespect to Mr. or Mrs. Lowland. It's bunk. That Satan is not a dude. Satan's not a guy with claws and a pointy tail. Satan is an allegory. So when I say esotericism, Jesus and Satan are not real people. They're not real things. They're not real forces. They are fragments of people, either in base consciousness or ignorance, which is satanically aligned, which is a process which happens inside a diseased brain, a diseased psyche, and as is Christ. Christed potential is an esoteric allegory about somebody who's raised in consciousness. So, as I said, if we want to go down the path of being satanically minded, because all we do is follow orders and instructions given by tyrants and psychopaths in government, well, guess what? We are then satanically endowed. That's why the world's in chaos, because low consciousness creates disorder, and disorder creates chaos. The masses are always going to be suffering if we remain in chaos.
Now, Exo has a question for Steve. Sorry, Exo says, question for Steve, Eric, but he hasn't put what the question is. What was that Harry Nilsson tune? What is it? If you haven't got an answer, you haven't got a question, you haven't got a question, you haven't got something like that. Remember that famous Harry Nilsson song? But I will say that if anybody would like to speak to Steve or Patrick, you can get through into the studio if you're on Telegram or Facebook, where the show is promoted. There's a studio link, so you can come through into the studio and speak directly. And we like to have polite discussion with people. And if you disagree, again, polite discussion is always welcomed. So you're welcome to join us here. There's a studio link there.
And Sally's asked a question, if you don't mind if I answer that. It was a while back, but she said, okay, if we don't organise society, then cartels and thugs will do it for us. I mean, I don't know if she's asking that as a question or whether that's a point that's just making.
Correct. She's correct.
I mean, well, all I would say to that then, Eric, is, well, what if we are in an organised society? Well, who's running the show? Cartels and thugs. Cartels and thugs are already firmly established, and not only that, they're extremely wealthy and they've got loads of bombs and bullets. And guess what? they're actually inflicting warfare upon the human population, using cognitive warfare, information warfare, and all the other stream of warfare actions that I've just listed. So I would love to know which gang of criminals is going to be much more prolific and evil than the government. And not only that, when the government, or if that ever happens, if you ever get to the stage where there's no government and people then are responsible for their own protection, well, guess what? You come to my house and try to extort me, I'll have a blinking battle rifle pointed in your face. So I can't do that with the government, unfortunately, because they deem self-protection to be a criminal offence. So good luck.
Larkin Rose. Larkin Rose is the man to look at. But I've got this wrong. Excellent. Anybody, if you've got a question for Steve or Patrick or even myself, please put it in capitals. I'll be very grateful because it helps me as I'm looking down the questions. And I'm sorry I can't put everybody's comments up, on the screen. I do apologise for that. But again, I try and get as many people as possible. But if you could put it in capitals, it'd make it much easier. Now this is Exo. He says, did he ever encounter any upper level military types towards the end of your career, Steve? He thought were switched on human beings. So did you ever encounter any switched on human beings at upper level ones?
Brilliant question, it's a really easy one to answer. Right, I would say, I'm going to say the word absolute retards. No, the entire military are absolute retards. And again, please don't take offence at my use of words. That it's not trying to be offensive to anybody other than the entire military in the entire world. And bearing in mind, I was a career soldier. I enjoyed my job, by the way. I really respect the blokes I work with, etc., etc. But that doesn't take away from the fact when you become a little bit more clearer as to how the world works and what this whole shit show's about, you realise that sadly everybody in the military is a complete imbecile, and that included myself. And I'm glad to say that I've left, and I'm quite happy to slag the place off, in order for people to maybe a spark might suddenly hit them and say, what's this lunatic on about? This imbecile, what's he talking about? Yes, what I'm trying to do is spark a level of care amongst the military so they can actually realize what's going on in the world, because most of them, sadly, were just like me, kept in the dark, fed on crap, and, like mushrooms. I didn't have a clue what was going on, didn't understand the bigger picture. And sadly, until somebody, punches these people in the face or slaps them with a wet fish, they're not going to get it. So no, sadly, none of them. They're all blinking imbeciles as far as I'm concerned. But that goes with the cops as well. They all need to be slapped in the face with a wet fish.
So your realization that it was an evil organization, corrupt organization that you were a part of.
Yeah.
In a sense, I see the hand of God in that, because he allows evil to exist, yet at the same time, he can take evil and make a greater good happen from the evil that took place. Would you say that's not a thing that happened to you, in the sense that you saw the evil, something woke you up?
Yeah, I mean, it's an excellent point, but at the end of the day, it wasn't the hand of God that woke me up. It was understanding or coming to a greater realization in my own head by understanding, let's just say, the laws of God as they appear in nature, which can be proven and tested and understood if people come to, I mean, as I did, and don't get me wrong, I'm not the world's most intelligent person, but I come to an understanding over the laws of nature by simply just doing a little bit of self-study. And anybody can do this if we provide enough time and motivation to get to that stage. Then we'll realize how the whole universe functions, because that's what the occult teaches, how the universe functions. Not what and again, Patrick, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anybody's particular religious notions, but religion doesn't necessarily teach how the universe functions through the laws of nature. but the occult does, and it also decodes how religion, if you were to read it rightly through its esoteric understanding, how the laws of nature and how people's ability to become free and to follow and obey by the creator of the universe become a little bit more clearer without having to do hundreds of years of religious study.
We welcome Anorak, by the way, into the studio.
Hello.
Oh, nice.
Evening. Oh, sorry, Patrick, was going to say, but what was you going to say, mate? Sorry, I cut in on you.
I was just, I guess what I was thinking in terms of what I was listening to Steve's talk there. I guess what greater thing do you have than your own mind then at a certain point? You know, what is there to rein in what your mind does? Rather, is there a greater law? You say there's natural law, and isn't that what all of these leaders do? Like Trump, for instance, I'll just use him as our current example of this war. He basically says, someone asked him, what's preventing you from going ahead with what you want to do? And he says, well, there's no international law that will prevent me from doing it. It's what goes on in my own mind. So if I change my mind, that's going to change the course of the military and what takes place with this war. So his mind is its own place. There's nothing higher than what he has for the law. And I guess if you see it as God's law that you follow with the natural law, what's to keep you in check from saying that, well, I'm going to create a war and not, because your mind is what the vibrations or whatever you want to say is what's controlling what you're doing.
Well,
I guess the morality and practical reason would say that you don't harm other people. You don't go off and you create war just because you're a powerful man. A tyrant means that you're a strong man. Just because you're a strong man doesn't give you the justification to harm people.
But of course, Trump is just a front man, isn't he? It's not him that's behind the wars. Right. It's the
right.
I know the Jesuits or the whoever else is.
Yeah, but he's got a responsibility in what's taking place, because he is the representative. Whether we claim to have representative governments, fine. He's not his own man. The people behind him are more wicked than he is as a collective. I agree with that, but there's nothing to prevent him also from saying, no, I'm not going to do this because this is going to harm more people than his justice would.
But it might be blackmail. It might be blackmail. Who we don't know. Now, Matilda says, question. Thanks, Matilda. Shove it in capitals. Nature or nurture? That's a question.
Well, the answer to that is nature. I mean, because nature is what creation is, and the laws of nature can be determined. So to answer parts of what Patrick's saying and some other people are saying in the chat, well, I mean, I obviously espouse occult science because the occult is about hidden knowledge. It's not a belief system. This isn't a set of a code from an ancient book written by a prophet. This is provable, and anyone can prove these points to themselves. Again, listen to me if you want, but don't take my word for it. Do your own research, as they always say. And if you do your own research and enough of it, you'll realize that, well, actually, what I'm trying to do is relate principles based on truth, which is open to anybody. I'm not trying to conceal anything through magical allegories or wizardry. This is just very simple, scientific, provable facts. So one of those is, I mean, we've talked about nature. Natural law is what creation is. It's how the universe functions. So if the universe functions, well, it functions according to deterministic outcomes. So when I say deterministic, this isn't we can change this if we want, because men are gods on earth, and we can change the rules of nature. No, you can't. The rules of nature are deterministic. They are set in stone. Nothing can change them. You can oppose them. And how do we oppose them? Because guess what? The universe also comes with a little caveat to the deterministic feature. It's known as free will. Man has free will. And this is why human consciousness needs to be improved upon. Because if we align ourselves to satanic ideology, which is what Satan is, so Satan's not this dude with the horns and the red skin and he lives in hell. Satan is the mindset of somebody who's acting in ignorance, which is practically, I hate to say it, it was me when I was a soldier, and it was the entire army, it's the entire police force. They're all satanically minded. And I'll come to this, and I'll actually prove it to you using very simple definitions. But if we act in satanic-minded mindset, well, guess what the world's going to be? It's going to be built upon crap, and we're going to wallow in our own crap. But if we follow the deterministic rules of nature, and we align our behaviors to them through what's known as natural law, by understanding them and raising our mindset to become more Christed in our mindset, well, guess what? Order will follow, then freedom will follow that order. But we won't get any freedom if we are down there with the satanic mindset.
I can see that. And also they're depressing us. We've got fear porn and everything else like that. But regarding Satanism, I have seen demonic possession where a person has a double personality.
I was just
which
going to
flips
say
instantly. It's one backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. And you're just bizarre. There is something beyond. I mean, we're very dumb and blind. I mean, look at a dog. A dog will look at something and stare, and we can't see it or smell it, but a dog can. But Jollyman's asked a question: does anyone know what a quark is? Yes, it's a duck with a hair lip, isn't it? Quark.
What?
Sorry,
Quark.
Quark, and that's a duck with a hair lip. And someone said, Mike.
Quark in time.
Mark has said it's the sound posh ducks make. A quark. But I think it's something to do with
sip their tea.
Physics, isn't it? It's to do with
it's quantum
physics,
quantum theory, quantum physics.
Yeah. It's something quantum physics is something I do when I'm cleaning the lab. Yeah, certainly.
Something that Steve said about the devil being, personified as this dark, this red-skinned, hell-dwelling individual. From what my belief is as a Christian, in what Satan is, the devil, he was a spiritual creature that God created. He's not greater than God. He's the creature that he created. And these spiritual creatures we call angels, the moment that they were created, they were given a choice to be evil or to do God's will. And the good ones chose to do God's will. The evil ones immediately, the moment they were created, became evil, because they were given that choice, because they had nothing separating them for their will. Like we have bodies that kind of slug us, we're spiritual creatures as well, but we're also corporal creatures that have bodies, and we have to deal with the decay that happens the moment we're born. We grow up, and then we have bodies that are corruptible. They didn't have anything preventing them from being just pure will to power, will to do to act. And so Satan isn't so much a creature like you say. It's more of a spiritual entity. He's an actual person, but he's created. He's not something like a separate,
it's a parallel universe. I think it's a parallel universe which links to ours.
He's not an equal to God, is what I'm trying to say. He's not equal to God. He's lesser than God.
But a lot of events that take place are linked to the satanic world. So in fact, anything that's in the news is satanic related, as the numerology sort of proves. And I was thinking about this: if there is such a thing, if God is deemed as this good individual, yet we live on a realm that's completely full of violence, and no matter what you look at, every animal species eats something else alive for the most part, which is nothing but violence, really. When you think about the whole the bigger picture of the realm we live on. It's all violence, isn't it? Every living creature eats something else.
Yeah, but as far as men are concerned, we're a higher spiritual creature than the animals are. So in a sense, they're made for us by God and given to us to dominate. And that's why in the book of Genesis it says that he gave man the ability to name and dominate the animals, to use them for his benefit, for the man's benefit, as well as all the vegetables and everything else that he created in the world.
But wouldn't a loving God make it so we don't have to kill anything else?
Well, we'd be automatons at a certain point and not have any free will, because I think he has a greater plan for us. I think that the greater good is giving you the ability to say no to him, but at the same time you can choose to do good, which is even greater than if he had just made us, like perfect and doing whatever he tells us without thinking and having that ability. So I think there's a...
So can I ask from this then? So, and again, I obviously debunk, I mean, not just Christianity, all religions, because all religions are about mind control. Again, I know some people would argue that fact, but that's fine. But what I will say is, does that mean that man's not in control of the way that he behaves because God and Satan is, or angels or demons? Or is it because we then relate allegory and fairy tales through religious allegory, and instead of then reaching a higher capacity of being able to embrace truth and principle and then apply those truths and principle, which are all provable, into the world, we then blame some sort of allegorical fairy tale figure, such as, let's just say, Satan. Satan. Is it Satan's fault that the world's in shit state, or is it the fact that human beings who have got the ability to act with free will are acting with a poor choice of free will by imposing violence, tyranny, restricting freedoms, thieving off people? In other words, you could use an umbrella term for all of these things. Basically, morality. So morality is what ultimately what the biggest secret in the occult is. Bear in mind that word means knowledge. The biggest secret in the occult is the understanding of morality through natural law. That's what all the secret societies and the religions on the face of the planet try to withhold from people, and they've done a really good job, because that's why we're living in an age
Steve,
of...
I think we're in a temporal realm that is governed by time, and it's not a purely spiritual realm that we're in this world, because we have time. Time is a definite thing. I mean, there are 365 days in a year. You can't deny that. So there's a reality that we live in, and I see the Bible as a historical document of time here on earth from the moment of creation with the first man and first woman, Adam and Eve, and that they were given that opportunity in the Garden of Eden to do good or evil, and God gave them one command: don't eat from that tree. And Eve was tempted by the devil in the form of the serpent. That's not to say that Satan wasn't a purely spiritual creature.
Can I ask a quick question on that? If it was written in Genesis that God commands that man does not obey the evil principles or diktats of a government, and then pays for the same group of evil imbeciles to go and bomb people in the Middle East, or can we figure that out for ourselves, do you think, or can we only obey what it says in a book? I mean,
well, I think that we obey God. I mean, we're here,
why,
and we're able
no
to.
offense, but why are we not?
Well,
that's
just it, because of the foolishness that took place. Eve was fooled by the serpent into eating from that tree, and then she fed it to Adam, who should have known better and said no, because he was given dominion over the animals for one, and then Eve was lesser than him in the sense of she should have obeyed him when he told her not to eat from that tree, because God told him. So
because of this, people are now unable, I mean, religious people for that matter, religious people are incapable of obeying the laws of God, because I mean, that's evident, that's evidential. I mean, that's provable. It's a provable fact that religious people can't obey the laws of God, because I don't know whether it's just the fact that they haven't understood the teachings, or they don't understand morality, they don't understand the laws of God, or they just can't simply bring themselves round to obeying their principles through their various holy establishments, because they're too busy and preoccupied with obeying what they're told to do by the government, such as pay tax, such as fund violence, such as keep voting for imbeciles like Donald Trump and or whatever other political imbecile that they favor, because that's what they want to take control of their lives, because they're just too lacking in commitment and faith towards their own God to do it for themselves. I mean, that's what I'm getting out of this conversation.
Alice,
of course,
sorry.
Chris.
Well, do you mind if I just read this comment and then you can come in, mate? All right, it's because Alice Gould just put this comment in some time ago. I'm sorry about this. Collective morality is going to take forever to spread to everyone. This is not the solution to the current immediate threat. That's what Alice Gould just has said. So, any comments on that?
It's innate in man in his heart, written by God as the law to love your neighbor and to love God. That's what I believe, and that's the natural law that's written on our hearts from the moment we're created. Like Steve says, we have a natural law to obey, and that's the natural law that we have in our conscience, that we know good from evil innately, and that we can decide that. But the problem is we have forces in our world working against that, because we have the problem of limited time on earth, and people want to seek all the pleasures that they can get in the time that they have. And a lot of that ends up being mastering over other people and trying to dominate. And that's our problem.
But I think the other thing that comes into this, and just thinking about what you're saying there, Steve, it's not just about government and that sort of thing. It's every aspect of life, isn't it? Because if you think about it, no matter what you do, you can't avoid the satanic world. So, I mean, I haven't set foot in a supermarket for quite some time now. I do all my shopping down at a farm shop locally to me. But most people out there can't avoid the satanic world, should we say, because people invariably will go to the local supermarket, which is bound to be owned by BlackRock, who is ultimately owned by the satanic world, I suppose. If you drive a car, you're going to fill it up at a BP station or an Esso station, which is going to be owned by BlackRock somewhere down the line. So although the government are part of the issue, it's just one aspect of it, and it's the bigger picture is that pretty much every aspect of our lives. I mean, we're using the internet at the moment, and whichever provider you're using, it's bound to be owned again by it'd be a BlackRock corporation somewhere down the line, which is again the satanic world. It's very hard to avoid it. I mean, I try and do my little bit by using the farm shop and avoiding the supermarkets, but again, it's quite a challenge to get away from that world altogether, if you like.
I mean, do you mind if I cut in on that or kind of answer some of those points? Because I mean, I think that's a really good point. I mean, in terms of the satanic world, well, and again, hopefully I'll be able to pick up some of the points that I made in chat. Somebody said there's no laws of nature. Well, prove it, because I can prove there is. So that's obviously 100% bunk. So, but I appreciate the point, whoever wrote it. And I mean, again, a study of the occult will actually prove, blow that point out the water. Another point to look at is something called solipsism, which is, anyway, again, please look into this yourselves if anyone's interested. But in terms of the satanic world, well, what is the satanic world? Well, Satan, as we've just determined. Again, prove this for yourselves through esoteric study. Satan is man in base consciousness, which is, I mean, if you want to put this in alchemy, lead to gold. What is lead to gold? Alchemy is the transmutation of metals. Alchemy, by the way, was nothing to do with changing metals at all. It was all about the establishment of evolving human consciousness from lead, which is dense but malleable, to gold, which is precious and everlasting. So it was complete allegory. So allegory goes through loads of different mythologies. None of the mythologies are real. These are all fairy tales so we can fabric and understand it in our own minds and process information into something symbolic, which is how the brain works and functions. It functions better by viewing symbolism, which is why symbology is used in everything from advertising. I'm sure Gustave Le Bon, who we talked about earlier, was well aware of how symbology works. But regardless of that, Satan is an allegory for man in base consciousness, lead. All right, let's look at the periodic table. From lead to gold on the periodic table is lead. I think it's, I might be wrong. I think it's thallium. Yeah, PB. From lead to gold on the periodic table, there's four spaces: lead, thallium, mercury, gold. And if we were to add up the elementary numbers of each of these elements, these 4 elements from lead to gold, what number do we get? We get the number 322. So many people will be thinking, oh, wait a minute, isn't March the 22nd 322? Yeah. Why is it 322? Why is it Lodge 322? Is it because it coincides with the spring equinox? Yes, the birth of the real new year, the spring equinox. And what is 322? It is lead to gold. But what else is it? It's also the season of sacrifice, because the law of correspondence, which is a law that is provable in nature, determines that as above, so below. So what we understand in our own heads is how the universe functions in its physical reality. The universe is a physical and spiritual domain. The two are inseparable. They're not different. There's not a spiritual plane, and we're on the physical plane. These two elements coincide. But if people just, and again, no disrespect, if people are hoodwinked by the mind control and delusion and fairy tales of religion and are held back in their understanding, they're never going to get this. So therefore, they're never going to be able to correct and redress the power balance between the psychopaths who are adherents of the dark occult, because everything's got polarity. There's dark and there's light. And guess what? Both of these things are not separate. They're the same thing. They're just different scales. Darkness is just light, but less of it. Light is just darkness, but with more light.
Steve, I would say that for instance, we'll take scripture. There's a lot of, like, not only historical account as it being a history of events that took place, but also there's plenty of allegory and what would you say, parables that take place that aren't to be taken as literal history type lessons. But for instance, you mentioned lead and gold, lead being the corruptible thing and gold being something that stands the test of time and doesn't tarnish. And in a way, the allegory in the Bible and scripture is that the soul is going to be tried, the suffering, all of these things that we go through in life, the pain and the sorrow. It's sort of like purifying our soul in the way that gold is purified. The corruption, the things that combust and burn off are going to burn off, but it's going to be tested with fire, which is the test of the sorrow in the world, the things that cause pain, because fire destroys. But at the same time, we're to be like gold being refined by a refiner, and it's a parable. It's an allegory. And in a similar way of what you're trying to, what you're telling about in the lead and the base of the gold and that sort of thing. There's a hidden meaning, and I think I can kind of see where you're coming from in that. And you call it a cult, and it's more or less things that are hidden to plain sight, but you can find a greater meaning to them when you know certain key elements and things that represent those things in allegory. And I just wanted to mention that. I don't. Go ahead, Steve.
Interesting. But by the way, Noland one says morality. So many people behaving immorally. just sleeping with the other one who is already married and sometimes married 6 times. There's like the woman that came up to the police.
That's practical reason too.
Yeah,
I mean, that's like morality. Morality is practical reason. If you sleep with someone who's married and has children and a husband, and you mess up that family, you're going to pay the consequences of it eventually, or there's going to be consequences to what you do.
It's like a woman goes to the priest and says, "Look, I want to. I'm married, but I want to sleep with the bloke round the corner." So the priest says, "That's perfectly okay, providing you sleep."
Yeah, well, that's what psychologists do. They make people feel better about sleep, destroying their families and committing.
As long as you sleep.
As long as you pay me, as long as you pay the psychologist, you can do what you want. I'll give you.
Do you mind if I pick up on a couple of points? I mean, somebody's mentioned about you don't need to study Satanism; you can see it and feel it. I mean. Again, I'm not trying to knock that point whatsoever. I'm just going to use it because he's used the word Satanism. And as I'd like to think that people now realize that Satanism is an expression of mind. It's about base consciousness. It's about low consciousness. It's about not being of a higher mind in order to enable the various necessities required to enable the practical application of morality. So morality, I mean, you defined it, Patrick, as
practical reason.
Practical reasoning. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I can define it in very simple terms. Okay, so morality is about enabling people to establish their rights, their natural born rights. But most people don't understand right from wrong. So right from wrong is a very simple thing. I think a lot of people will probably realize it intuitively. However, mind control through organizations such as government, education, religion takes this out of our heads, and then we can't actually apply it because it's not ingrained as a principle. So a right is the ability to a right is any action that creates no harm to others. Therefore, a wrong is any action that creates harm to others. So if the action that we perform, whatever that might be, if nobody gets harmed by it, then it is a right. But sadly, government, because they realize that they can monopolize and make money on morality, they've eroded that notion from people. So people think that smoking weed, for example. Say again?
That's right.
They're thieves.
Yeah, they're the lowest. That's right. The lowest of the low.
And that they need to restore what they've done too, because once you harm somebody, there needs to be a restoration, or what we call satisfaction, for what you've done. And to replace the harm, you need to create a good to replace what you've done to harm someone else. You can't just say, "Well, I'm saved by the blood of Jesus, and there's nothing I need to do because Jesus saved me, and I don't need to restore the money that I stole because Jesus will cover it." It's like, no, you need to actually go out there and repair the harm that you did, rather than just say, "Well, I'm forgiven," and it's all. So that's what people see in religion. They see the hypocrisy of it, because it's like, you can do what you want as long as you say that Jesus says I'm saved. It's like, that's not how it should be.
Am I right? I mean, I know nothing about the Bible, and I've got this second-hand information that there's nothing in the Bible about jails and prisons, and that if you
they have
steal from someone, you pay them back. You actually pay them back, and with interest, sort of thing, which is usually, sounds like, yes.
Well, it's not usury, and if you if you stole something from somebody and they ended up starving, their family members starved to death, and it's because you stole something from them, that creates a lot, stealing a sheep and then they starve to death, and I got to restore 4 sheep. Well, that's nothing compared to the lives that were taken. You got to kind of measure it out.
Yes. But I actually read there was a book, a chap, I can't remember the name of the book, but this chap had cycled around the world. It took him years to do it. Quite amazing. And he said that 99% of people are really nice. It's the 1% that we got a problem with. And he was the one it was in the poorest area of, I think it was India or Bangladesh, one of those places. and he came over bad. He had a bad stomach,
Sick.
and he's taken away by ambulance, and he's like in his all his possessions and his bike were propped up against a wall, and he thought, well, it's definitely going to go, and he was away for some time. When he come back, not only was the bike still there, but someone had pumped his tires up for him, and he said that is in the poorest areas. Yet he went to Hollywood, and he was mugged about 3 times. He had his bike stolen.
Yeah, well,
and he said he was on the pavement, and people were just stepping over him.
There's something to be said for morality of a culture. Because it is a cultural thing. It's like in Saudi Arabia. You don't dare steal there because you could get your hand chopped off. Yeah. It's just like there are thefts like you would in another culture, but at the same time, it's severe compared to other cultures. And you'd be horrified if that happened where someone stole and their hand was chopped off. I mean, in our culture, it's not accepted. I mean, it's different culture, different mentality.
There is a way, that a technique you could almost say, or means of understanding morality by what's known as the apophatic inquiry, which is what something isn't, essentially. So morality, I mean, we've kind of defined right and wrong. So a right is any action that performs no harm, intentional harm, that is, to another living being. And I used the example, or briefly, that if I was to smoke cannabis, if the only person that's likely to get harmed by that action is myself. So if I want to harm myself, that's my right to do so. It's nobody else's. It's not the government's. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with smoking, for example, but it's my right or anybody else's right, because that is a principle in nature. The only people who can take that away is mind controllers, who will either use forms of threats or violence known as duress, i.e. the government, who will erode those rights, because that's what government do, mind control. And what do? They remove rights and liberties and freedoms.
As far as self-harm is concerned, though, it's like a drunk and having to support his family. He's got children and a wife, and he gets drunk instead of going to work. Eventually, that's going to erode away from other people, even though it's self-harm. There's still that element of responsibility.
If we were to analyze that, Patrick, is it the alcohol that's causing that problem?
No, it's the choice of the person.
So it's the choice, isn't it? And the choice is what? It's not the alcoholism, it's the immorality. It's the not understanding right from wrong. So morality is the root of all problems in the world. If we act, I mean, there's a law of freedom that states when morality improves, freedom improves. When morality declines, freedom declines. It's a law. It's a constant in nature. It's a principle. And if we can understand that very simple principle, oh, wait a minute, should we drop bombs on women and children in some Middle Eastern country? Actually, is it immoral? Is it not immoral? It's pretty obvious what's going to happen when we enable these actions. Because guess what? The government aren't just paying for these bombs by themselves. It's coming out of our pockets. So that cyclist who's went around the world, loads of good people, yeah, I'd agree. Most people I've ever been in contact with, in the army, for example, I've been all over the world. I'd say everyone, very, very much pleasant people. Even the people who shoot at you, most of them are pretty decent people. But what was happening? All my soldier mates, including myself, are still paying taxes so we can go and brutalize another third world country 10 years, 20 years down the line, which is exactly what's happening. But guess what? Most of the guys I work with seem nice enough, and then we went shooting other people again.
I think the government actually enforces these things we'd call vices, the things that cause us to be, docile, and drugs and that sort of thing, and drinking. I think the harmful things, that the self-harmful things are promoted by the government because they want us docile and not able to effectively protest what they're doing. It's like the Grateful Dead were set up by the military to pass out LSD to the people that otherwise would have been protesting the Vietnam War. And it derailed the whole anti-war movement as a consequence, and just completely derailed it because you didn't have people. It started out in Berkeley, California, with people in suits and ties, conservative-looking people protesting it. And then they introduced the drug use and all of the moral degeneracy, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and it completely destroyed any sort of opposition to Vietnam. I mean, they do this all the time, and I think the same with pornography. That's why pornography is free. They do it because they know that it will subvert the morals of the people that view it, and then eventually they won't be able to do anything about the bombings that go on. That's why, like in Gaza in 2013, they took over the televisions and broadcast pornography because they knew it would demoralize the people.
So from what you've just said, we can recognize, I would imagine probably everyone on the face of the planet, even kids, can recognize if government are capable of doing this kind of thing, oh, guess what? They're feeding the troops LSD, or they're taking away this, that, and the other. Well, what does that mean? It means, well, this organization are evil psychopaths. And so this is the bit I don't quite get, or I certainly don't encourage, is the fact that we've recognized through their deeds all of this evil stuff. Yet what are we doing? Absolutely sweet FA. We're still paying them. We're still voting for them. We're still funding. We're advocating for them. We're still believing in them. We're believing that there's no other way that we can organize ourselves without a bunch of other human beings who are evil, satanically minded psychopaths to do it for us. What kind of lunatics is the human population if we can't understand what evil is and then do something very simple to stop it? That's what was my piss, to be quite honest. I mean,
sorry to cut across you, but we'll be saying goodbye to Food for Thought Radio in about a minute's time. So I just thought I'd say that. Sorry, Steve. So please carry on.
I'm just going on a rant.
That's okay. You have a rant as long as you want.
I see that comment about drinking alcohol. I don't mind drinking a little bit, having a beer here and there.
Yeah. But then I think alcohol is a spirit which affects your soul.
Well, my father... Sorry.
What's the excess?
Which is why you'll get the most decent of person. Without the drink, they're a decent individual. But as soon as they start drinking, like whatever it may be, it affects their soul, and they either become violent or they become talkative, one or the other. But it's the alcohol affects the spirit of the individual.
It's like medicine.
I agree.
It's like medicine. Certain medicines, it's a matter of the dosing. If you overdose on something, you kill yourself. But if it's just a light amount, no.
Right. We're going to be, in about a minute's time, saying goodbye to Food for Thought Radio. And so
we got new music.
We got some new lead. We got a lead in now, so that's great. So as I say, thank you very much, everybody on Food for Thought Radio. We'll be carrying on. Sorry, this leading music's got me. You can't hear it in the bit like you can't actually outside the studio. But we'll be carrying on YouTube, Rumble, and sorry.
What was that?
That's Paul. No, not you, Paul. The other Paul.
That's right. And so, as I say, any minute now. So this is Paul put this on as a leading music, and it's very, very appropriate.
I thought it was one of you guys farting under some music.
Goodbye, Food for Thought Radio.
Wake up your mind, fill up your day. Smart little bites that brighten your way. You're listening to Food for Thought Radio. Here at FFTradio.com. Cluck, moo, oink.
That's it. And we're carrying on
That was funny.
Rumble. And
I didn't hear it last time. I wasn't on with you last time, and I wasn't expecting that.
But actually, Lowland, before you go, I haven't answered the question. My father was teetotal. I generally am, but I am partial to the occasional Guinness about once or twice a year, if that. So, as a rule, I don't really drink alcohol. So
a little bit of wine here and there.
Yeah.
Moderation.
Well, Lowland has come back saying alcohol takes you away from God. And it's interesting that when I used to go to church many years ago, they'd serve the bread and wine, which is alcohol. Which is quite ironic that the alcohol takes you away from God, and they serve it in churches as the blood of Christ.
The blood, the blood of the grape.
I don't think they do that in C of E churches. I think it's only Catholic, isn't it, who do that?
What's
I don't know.
No, they do it in Protestant churches too.
Do they do it in Protestant
churches?
I didn't know that.
But so as far as Islam's concerned, they don't have any alcohol. They're pure prohibition. But I think that it's medicinal, if anything. It puts you in a good mood. Why not? Why not?
Yeah, I think that
as long as it's as long as you don't go overboard and get drunk, that's the problem.
It's like everything else. You might like rice pudding, but if you have rice pudding 3 times a day, every day, it's going to make you ill. You know what I mean? That's the thing.
At the end of the day, if somebody determines that they want to drink alcohol, even if they want to get smashed out the face on it, providing they do no harm to other people while they do that, then that is their right. And until society actually embraces principles instead of either, I don't want to just use the term religious notions, or erroneous, let's just use the term erroneous notions, such as alcohol takes you away from God. I mean, is that an opinion? Is that a fact? I mean, if I'm espousing the laws of God and I'm also having a stout, well, am I I don't know, am I an abomination? Am I talking on my arse because I've sniffed half a pint of beer?
Well, do you feel any different now having drunk that than like 2 hours before you had drunk it?
No, absolutely not. But yes, I've been smashed out my face many times. I was a soldier. We got smashed out of our faces regularly. I'm not encouraging people to do that, but does that make you a bad person if you are getting smashed out your face for your own personal rights? Embracing your own personal rights,
freedom to do what you want.
Exactly.
Again, going back to anthropology, there are tribes that they can brew their own alcohol. It's not that difficult to do that, and there's ayahuasca, things like that. But it's done in a way where people don't get addicted to it. And this is the thing. I mean, you don't get tribespeople, excuse my language, pissed out there, pissed as a newt, wandering around. You don't get that because they're a very sort of, shall we say, structured societies in many ways. And but again, I mean, anthropologists didn't go to the jungle and say, "Oh, bloody hell, that was all those Indians all peed." It seems to be. I mean, look at the Aborigines now. It's only when the Europeans introduced them to alcohol that they got drunk, and they stopped them doing their walkabouts and stopped them from doing their.
It's like anything. It's in the use of it, and I think our culture is such that it takes something that's natural and then tries to take it to an extreme, and it's like now we've got instead of heroin now it's fentanyl, and it's just like you get the extreme. Yeah, with these drugs and the corrupting influence of them comes in when it's not used as a medicine, but as a form of control and as a form of degrading people and subjugating people. Is what ends up happening. Like the medicine industry is an industry, and it's become something that instead of looking out for the soul and the good of the people, doing no harm, it becomes pharma, where it's all about the money and it's all about corrupt profit
That's
seeking.
Right. And what's the disease going to be? We could all vote on it. It's meningitis at the moment. What's the disease at the moment?
These politicians, as bad as they are, the people who put them into power are worse. They're worse if you think of it.
Yeah.
As a
I
collective,
agree.
they're
The
worse.
people who put them into power are the population. And the population maintains them in power because they're too dumb to think for themselves.
Yeah.
And And I hate to say it, hypocritical to the point where many people, not just religious folk, but in general, many people will hypocritically claim that they're all godly people, religious people, spiritual people. Yet as soon as it comes to, well, let's put some spiritual principles before the man-made establishment who take away all your God-given freedoms away, well, guess what we choose? So mankind, in fact, I use the term ideological Satanism, which you might have heard me mention before, simply because if we closely examine the behaviors and beliefs of modern society, we can easily, not just a belief or this is my understanding, we can easily prove that it is leaning towards Satanism as a dominant ideology, because our society, without even knowing about it, embraces Satanism through its own ignorance. And it's social conditioning, because the word government means mind control. What do they do? Well, they feed us alcohol, but they don't allow things that are very beneficial, things like cannabis, for example. Cannabis has got loads of positive health things. I'm sure if people have looked that up and have come to that determination.
Well, they allow it. I mean, they even promote it in places. Well, it depends where you live, I guess. Some places not.
And that in itself, that fact that you've just mentioned, in some places they'll allow it, in some places they don't. Well, that's Satanism for a kickoff, and I'll prove that. That's known as moral relativism. That's the belief that right and wrong can be established on a whim, that we can allow other people to formulate what is right or wrong behavior, and we can promote tolerance towards a certain harmful behavior or banish a certain behavior, even if it's good. It's the belief that a person or group or a culture can arbitrarily decide upon restrictions, permissions, and rules, and that can enable the justification of harm being directed towards others. So moral relativism is the second leading tenet in the religion of Satanism. And moral relativism is essentially how every single government on planet Earth operates.
It gets me, Steve, that the fact that the same people that are against drug use, whether it's narcotic drugs or whatever it might be, at the same time were the same people that said you have to take the vaccine. It's just, to me, it's utter hypocrisy. It's like people were dying from the vaccine, and yet it was safer to take heroin. It's just like, you think of the dichotomy there. I'm not suggesting that we should be doing drugs or anything. I'm just saying.
But when drugs, look at Clinton. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead, Clinton.
Yeah, no. Well, Clinton. Oh no, he didn't inhale.
Yeah.
His brother.
Any of that. It's hypocrisy and all of that.
But of course,
no doubt.
The main drugs that are out there, they all come from the opium trade, which is their world. But of course, cannabis or hemp is one of the most powerful plants. If they grew hemp everywhere, it could be used it's got so many applications besides making fantastic teas and keeping us fit and healthy.
Well,
made baskets out of it, clothing out of it. It's really powerful. And just briefly onto the meningitis thing you mentioned, Chris.
Yeah.
One of my friends picked up on this, that the first case was in the University of Kent.
Mm-hmm.
And from the date that was established, which was the 4th of January 1965, to the day they announced the first meningitis outbreak, was 61 years and 60 days, 616, which is the alternative number of the beast.
Good find, mate.
That's an interesting one. 616, yeah.
616.
Do you mind if I mean, you've mentioned the number of the beast, and to pick up on what Lowland One has written, I'm sorry, I don't know if it's a man or a lady, but either way, Lowland's made a comment about, I think it's something to do with drinking is satanic. All right, I think this is an issue that needs to be addressed. Satanic. So I'm drinking alcohol at the minute. Not even gonna lie, I've even drank nearly a nice pint of stout, really tasty too. Right, Millions of people throughout the world drink alcohol. Now, I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing or a good thing, but what I am saying is, does that mean anybody who drinks alcohol, because it can damage certain things, does that mean it's satanic, or is Satanism better defined? So I think this is an important point to address. I'm going to address what the four aspects of Satanism are, so people can then understand. Again, it's about higher consciousness. If we understand more, then we are raising
I'll be right back.
Okay, mate. So in order to do that, Satanism, what is it and what is it not? Well, drinking alcohol is not a satanic act. Okay, because everybody's got a fundamental right to do whatever they want. So if you want to inject yourself with bleach, again, probably harmful, probably even kill you. Not a good idea, but if somebody wants to do that, that's their God-given right, because it doesn't harm any other person other than oneself. Sorry, Eric.
Sorry, I was chiming in on you. Sorry, mate. Now, what I was going to say is, all right, I enjoy riding my push bike. Now, I have a choice whether I wear a cycle helmet or not. That's my decision, my choice. And that's the way it should be with most things. So when I go out, do I decide to put a helmet on or not? That's my choice. And I'm glad there's no law that says you've got to wear a helmet. No, I don't want that. And it's look what happened with motorcycles. Lots of Sikhs were really up in arms when they made it compulsory that you had to wear a crash helmet on a motorcycle. But what's it got to do with the government? Because if I had a motorcycle, I think it's a good idea to wear a crash helmet. Yeah, so I'd wear one. But that'd be my own personal choice. I'm not having wagging fingers telling me to do it or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because you've embraced what a right is, and your right is, well, guess what? I can do what I want. I'm not harming anybody else, so I'll do what I want.
And that's your choice. That's at the end of the day. We should be allowed to make our own choices, which unfortunately a lot of the time we're not. The health and safety thing is the one that bugs me. I've mentioned this many times. Health and safety to me is just dictatorship, basically, about but where people can't use common sense. If one of my previous places where I worked, I went down to our warehouse and we sold things like copy of paper, photocopy paper on pallets, and the warehouse manager always said you need to put a hard hat on, and I said, well, if that pallet of paper drops off there, is the hard hat going to make any difference? And he said, no. Well, what's the point in wearing it then? Other than it might be easier to collect the bits. It'll all be in one lump rather than spread all over our warehouse floor. It's I really don't like.
Well,
we're dictated to by this.
I agree with you. It's lunacy. Rocky Road to Love 17 says they should make ashtrays compulsory on motorcycles instead of crash helmets.
I like it.
I like that one. I remember. I did a little. I had a project with the oil industry at a place called Stanford Lee Hope. We called it Stanford No Hope. And when I went onto site to do some surveying, oh bloody hell! Talking about the paraphernalia. You have to wear goggles, helmet, steel cap boots, knee pads. Anyway, all got togged up, see, and it was a field, because I don't know if anybody's seen Stanford No Hope or Lee Hope. That's where the oil refinery used to be. There's miles of piping, and it's just the only thing that would harm you would be a bird crapping on your head. That's about it, really. And it's a boiling hot day, so I'm walking along like this, trying to see where, and I needed to do a survey of the control centre. And I was walking along, and I got all my surveying stuff under my arm. Well, and my glasses, these goggles are getting steamed up, and I almost fell down a bloody ditch because I got these ditches round. And you think oil refineries are all high tech with men with white coats and clipboards? Bullshit! They're bits of carpet and string tied round pipes. That's how crude it was, and it was so dangerous. So I had to lift the goggles up. And someone brought us, put those goggles on, shouting from way over in the field. Someone had seen me take my goggles upwards. Why? Common sense would tell me, well, don't wear all that gear whilst walking across this field, because there's nothing going to harm you apart from a pigeon crapping on your head. or a grass snake snapping at your foot, I suppose. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. Going back to that scenario in our warehouse, this building was a modern build, so it got a lot of daylight into it, and I still got told you need to put a high vis jacket on because of the forklift trucks. Well, if a forklift truck driver can't see me in broad daylight, maybe I'd be questioning why he's driving a forklift truck in the first place. And by the way, that joke from Mike Mantis is brilliant.
Oh, it's brilliant. My friend died from cigarettes. And Marlboro truck ran over him. Sorry, that's a terrible. But now, Stephen Truseeker says, health and safety saves lives. I 100% agree with you. Health and safety does save lives if it's done with a kind of logic, i.e., people that put up scaffolding. Yes, they should have safety harnesses on. I agree. If you're doing scaffolding, you should wear a hard hat because a piece of scaffolding pipe could drop on your head. Fine. That it should be common sense that would be driven into people. It shouldn't need to be regulated. You should know that, and you should have that safety equipment available for you. You know, I mean, let's put it this way: if you went into battle, Steve, you wouldn't have an luminous jacket on, a luminous hat, would you? No.
However, I would if I was an order-following imbecile, which is practically the majority of the human race, who just follow whatever the authorities tell them to, even if it's harmful. Like, go and get one of those, please. Get one of those. It's really good for you. Get one of those little arm spears, because that's what 7 billion people on this planet have just done. Not because they've been, and one of the reasons for that is mind control, because mind control is a little bit like how health and safety at work operates. If you don't comply, there's going to be a punishment, and that punishment could lose your job. You could get some sort of disciplinary. Right. This is how government work.
But it gets silly though. This is the trouble. It starts off. You think, well, okay. I mean, seatbelts. I think it's a good idea to wear a seatbelt. Personally, I wear a seatbelt. I think it's a good idea. You know, and. Now, Aunt Sally writes, and she's got a very good point here. In 1984, my mum was hospitalised with a brain hemorrhage. I'm sorry to hear that. The ward was full of brain-injured motorcyclists pre-helmet laws. It's interesting.
That's a great point in itself. I mean, I agree. Some laws, you could say, are very good at helping people make correct choices. I would say I support that in principle. I don't necessarily support it in reality, because ultimately, what it does, all laws defiles rights. If you defile a right, then you become a slave, and that's what the human population is now: slaves. They're basically just another form of economic slaves to a system who tell other people, other human beings, how to live their lives, even if you want to ride a motorbike, which I do, if you want to ride a motorbike without a helmet, I wouldn't agree with that. Personally, I wouldn't do it myself. However, if other people want to do that, that's their right. If they want to be stupid and dangerous to themselves and injure themselves, kill themselves, that's their right. If the minute we start taking away these rights, that's when we give away control. And if the freedom movement, this is the whole point, the freedom movement want to be free. Well, you're never going to be free when you've assigned your rights and liberties to a bunch of psychopaths. Now, earlier I mentioned, if you don't mind, Eric, I'll quickly mention what Satanism is, because there's some stuff in chat. And again, I'm not trying to pick on anybody or highlight anything, but some of it's absolute bunk. Some of it, because Satanism, let's just define what Satanism is. I think Sami Gurori came up with a great term. I thought that Satanism was inversion of the moral values, moral relativism as the subjectivity of truth, which is exactly right. Satanism is the inversion of moral values. I'm going to list 4 of them out of what the religion of Satanism defines it to be. First and foremost is rampant selfishness. Selfishness, that's not just about self-preservation or service to self. This is about the preservation of one's agenda or group, which may be in direct opposition towards things like the principle of care. So the government are selfish. They preserve their group focus, their group needs. They don't necessarily give two hoots about the rest of the population, as the poisonous arm clutch shot proved. They couldn't give a crap about the human population. Moral relativism is the next one. I've already mentioned that. As Sam Gurari said, the subjectivity of truth, i.e., the belief that there's no objective principle in nature regarding right and wrong, which we've just established. A right is any action that causes no harm to another. A wrongdoing is any action that does. I mean, to elaborate further on what wrongdoing is, we mentioned the apopathic inquiry, i.e., what is it not? Well, guess what? It's not right to murder, to assault, to violate somebody sexually. It's not right to trespass. It's not right to thieve. It's not right to coerce somebody or deceive them. These are all transgressions of natural law. These are all violations that impose harm. So if we are doing any action or supporting anyone who follows those actions, such as the government who transgress all of those principles, then we are all equally satanically minded, ideological Satanism. The next point is social Darwinism, and this is the belief, you could say, or the conceptual version of like the survival of the fittest mentality, or that there is an evolutionary superior trait or group of people who are assigned more rights than others. Well, no, because all men are created equal. That means nobody can have any further rights or privileges than anybody else. Yet, look at us all. Here you go, Mr. King. Here you go, Your Majesty. Take $666 million for your next, party with the World Health Organization or whatever else.
That's right. So, go and fly over there in your posh jet and tell people they can't fly because you're destroying the environment. But Aunt Sally said, so crash helmets aren't stupid. Well, I didn't say they were stupid, did I? I don't know. But
no, of course not.
And Lowland's come out with a good one. This is true. Crash helmets it's the Netherlands actually, not Holland. They do not like to wear them. That's right. If you go to the Netherlands, you rarely see anybody wearing a cycle helmet. Even a lot of the children do not wear them. Yeah, and they apply it in a logical way. I don't.
On a bicycle?
Well, I do and I don't. Sometimes I do, and so it depends on what type of bike I'm riding. Mm-hmm. If I'm riding a fold-up bike, I'm not going to wear a helmet on that. It's a bloody thing, small one. But if I've got on my racing bike, yeah, I'll wear a helmet on that because if I come off of that, I'm gonna do myself some damage.
Practical reason. Practical reason to say don't if you're going a certain speed, then yes, wear a helmet. But if you're not, then don't.
Well, I go like a bat out of hell on that. Depending on if I've had spinach in the morning, that's it. So,
it's like here we have laws that say you can ride your motorcycle without a helmet, no big deal.
In the States, is it law you got to wear a helmet on your bicycle?
In Wisconsin.
Not in.
Oh no! I'm just saying that it varies from state to state. Mm-hmm. In Wisconsin, they have no helmet laws that say that you have to wear a helmet because it's just like wearing a seatbelt. It's like, what harm are you doing to anybody else? Is it a sin? Like as a Christian, that's how I look at the law. Is it a sinful thing? Of course, murdering somebody is a sin, and that's against the law. But is wearing your seatbelt a sin? No. But, and yet, at the same time, they try and regulate it like it's a law. And really, in fact, it's just to make money. And maybe it does prevent deadly accidents when they do occur. It's a good idea to have your seatbelt on. Yes, I think so. But if you're just traveling into town or from one place to another, then what's the point? Even if you went on a long journey, it's like, what's the point? You're going to crash, and it's probably going to be bad anyway.
But the thing is, I suppose with a lot of motorcyclists, I guess they don't always do themselves any favours in some of the stunts they try when they're out on main roads and so on and so forth, where they'll overtake or undertake lorries, buses, whatever it is. I guess that's no helmet's going to save that if the individual that's riding it is
But
a
it's
muppet, I
just a
suppose.
good idea to wear a helmet. I'm not arguing against that, but I'm just as far as it being lawful and illegal and someone being able to fine you for not having it, I think that's wrong. I think it should be up to you whether you do that or not, as long as it's not
I agree. It's like with cycle wearing. You know, wearing a bicycle helmet on a fold-up bike because you don't go very fast is a bleeding joke. Whereas on a racing bike, yes, and it's the same with the Dutch. Dutch are like that. If they're riding a racing bike, yes, the Dutch will put a helmet on. But if they're doing a usual granny bike, going shopping, no, they won't. But Aunt Sally said, let's be honest, cycle helmets and crash helmets are sweaty and horrible to wear. Well, I don't know, my cycle helmet, it's got like vents in the front of it that cool your head off. And if you're bored like me on a coolish day, it gets bleeding cold.
I'll tell you one thing, with the cycle helmets, they're a pain in the arse if you get a bee or a wasp decide to head for that direction.
Well,
it's interesting. Sorry, go on, Eric, you speak.
Well, no, I was very quick. After you, mate. Far away, go on.
Well, I was just highlighting the fact that it's interesting that we're kind of debating evil in society, the difference, the moral distinction between right and wrong, and also Satanism and the tenets of Satanism. And in order to define it, we're talking, or if that's the right word, we're talking about the pros and cons of cycle helmets rather than talking about the pros and cons of being tyrannized by a bunch of evil psychopaths
or carpet bombing whole villages and cities. Yeah, right.
And this is what we need to get in perspective. I mean, if people want to wear a cycle helmet, brilliant. I sometimes do. Sometimes I don't. In fact, I don't even wear a seatbelt all the time. I don't necessarily. I mean, I try not to make a habit of it, but I don't beat myself up over it.
Right.
Why? I break in the law. Yeah, I also speed as well. Not all the time, but sometimes I just stick a finger up to whatever the speed condition this is, as long as I deem that the actions and behaviours that I participate in are not going to cause harm to anybody else. And that is
like
my
anything.
right to do so. Sorry?
The little things lead to big things eventually, too. So discussing the little things that happen, they can eventually, with enough of habit formed, you could then say that it leads to the greater evils in society. So it's worth looking at the little ones too, but really what are important are the bigger ones.
Well, I agree. I mean, the little things, we're going to argue about the little things for another 2,000 years. And the government are still going to be using our tax money to go and profit from the next war in the Middle East, which will just be ongoing. Because I don't know if the viewership are aware of something called...
Well, I just wanted to say, we're so worried about whether we buckle our seatbelt or not. And at the same time, the government is out there bombing people.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, just to pick up on Aunt Sally's point, if you don't wear a cycle helmet or seatbelt, you have a terrible accident. Somebody has to clean up your mess and take care of you. Well, to be quite honest, in this society, somebody will, but that doesn't mean that they have to. I mean, I don't do anything in life and think, oh, it's all right, I'll just act like a complete deranged idiot because there's always the NHS who will stitch my leg back on. I mean, I totally get that. But as far as I'm concerned, they don't have to. I don't live my life thinking, oh, that's all right, because in the back burner, there's somebody else who's going to clean up after my bad decisions. But what the point is, to move on from that, I mean, we mentioned Satanism. Ideological Satanism is the number one leading religion in the entire planet. And the leading tenet of that religion that is pretty much practiced by every man, woman, and child on the face of planet Earth is moral relativism, which we've mentioned, and I think that needs to be hammered home more than the cycle helmet issue. We've also talked about social Darwinism. Somebody mentioned about it's a dog-eat-dog society. Yeah, that's complete mind control. That's not. We might live in a dog-eat-dog society, but as human beings, that doesn't mean that's necessarily should be the case. We allow it because we're moral relativists. Therefore, we believe in our own heads, which are deranged, that there is a social order that should be adhered to. Because what we forgot is natural law. Natural law shows that all men are created equal. The do no harm principle. Do treat others as you like to be treat yourself. Why are we not operating to that? Why? Because we've completely forgotten and can't be asked to operate under the principles of God's creation. We've completely forgotten it because why? Because we're ideological Satanists in our hearts and in our heads. And until we get both of these places sorted, what we do with these things is always going to be aligned to Satanism. So sorry to move on, but from that, the last cornerstone of the ideological Satanism that we as human beings adhere to, and this includes practically every person in religion, every religion on earth. Why? Because they follow the government. The government use a substance known as eugenics as their final solution. All right, excuse the term. It's to the lineup of satanic ideologies that governments completely adhere to. It's the driving force behind the clot shot. Everybody remembers that. Well, what was that? It was eugenics in action. And who paid for that? Practically everybody. Who allowed that? Practically everybody. How many people, I mean, ask amongst yourselves, how many people went up to police officers at vaccine centres? Truthers, any truthers listen to this. How many truthers or religious people went up to police officers in uniform and citizens arrest them? So how many people have got a citizen's arrest on police constables in the truth movement? Because I can hold my hand up to that. I've arrested.
You did, and we got it on film.
Sergeant, no, that was a separate one. I've arrested citizens arrested, a police sergeant and a police inspector. I've also had faced many, and I'm not trying to say, "Oh, look how awesome I am," because I'm not interested in that nonsense whatsoever. I'm simply following the laws of God, which says, "Do no harm to others." And if we were God-loving people, we would not allow other people to be harmed by the transgressions and violations of natural law, which is practically the entire human race has allowed the 6 billion people on this planet to get violated with poison. And very, very few people actually stood up or had the balls to actually do anything about it. So if anyone wants to come back at me and say, oh, the human race is not following the religion of Satanism, yeah, well, I've just proved that's completely bunk, out of the water. Everybody's a practicing Satanist because we all supported eugenicism. We all supported social Darwinism, moral relativism, and ultimately we've all supported rampant selfishness. That's what Satanism is. That's what the human population is. Until we fix this thing and then fix this thing, the actions that we perform are always going to be aligned to the guy with the spiky tail and the pointy horns.
I've got to ask you a question on that one, Steve. When your citizens arrested those two constables, what did you do with them? Did you take them to the local cop shop to get them dealt with, or?
No, I just read them their rights. Took their names and informed them that they were under citizen's arrest. Took their names, videotaped as evidence, and basically that was it. I mean, fundamentally, you can't put a police officer in handcuffs in the middle of a city centre and then tell him he's detained.
Well, why not?
Well, because unless you want a taser or
I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing to do it. I'm just being.
I mean, fundamentally, you can, because these people, as far as I'm concerned, the cops are completely the whole, not just the British cops throughout the world have shown themselves for what they are: evil-minded, order-following dickheads of the highest order who need to be stopped. Yeah, exactly.
And that's the problem. We've been dispossessed of our ability to do anything about the tyranny in that regard from happening again with the COVID madness. You do. No doubt. I'm just saying that we don't have the wherewithal to be able to do that because we've been dispossessed of any sort of having any sort of organization ourselves.
That's right. Now, Warhead Rex says the oil supply is being destroyed. Mining has been shuttered for decades and relies on high technology, not usable by 99%. It looks like we're going to be reset. Yes, I agree. Yes. I mean, we've got 400 years of coal beneath our feet in this country. We could be self-supporting, and according to Dr. Magnus Pike, the late Dr. Magnus Pike, he wrote a book about it. He reckons that this country could supply the world with food, with technology. We could have good quality food, but they don't, and that's it.
Yeah.
But
Gents,
anyway,
I'm going to need to drop off if that's
well,
okay.
I'm going to need to drop off because I was up early this morning and I'm feeling a bit clackered. It's been a fantastic show. Tomorrow night, Ben Emlyn Jones is on. Now, that's going to be interesting. And gentlemen, you're all welcome on if you'd like to come on with Ben.
Who is he?
You'll find Ben Emlyn Jones.
We'll find out. Okay.
You'll find out. He's very interesting chat. And you're more than welcome on. It's an open house. And so it's been a fantastic evening. Steve, you've really done well tonight. Excellent. We do well every night, every time you're on the show. But no, you've really spoken from the heart tonight. And something particularly sort of was it something sort of kicked your cage this week or something? Something got right up your router about what's happening?
You could say, I mean, just very briefly, because I know you're cutting things off. We have landed today on the satanic season of sacrifice. The very day that was used by Boris Johnson to basically put every man, woman and child in the UK under house arrest, voluntary. Yes. And again, throughout the world, voluntary house arrest based on deceit and manipulation, lies in order to establish what? Eugenicism. We are lied to by Satanists, yet we support them in almost everything that they're doing. Here's another war in the Middle East. Day 22, and they're already instigating the satanic season of sacrifice, psychodrama upon the human population to seed the next New World Order bullshit. And what I mean, and no disrespect, but we're really not much further forward. We're arguing over whether we should wear a fucking seatbelt. And again, I'm not trying to be flippant here, but in the scheme of things, 6 years since COVID, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention that word. Sorry if that slipped out. 6 years since that thing happened, and not one person, as far as I know, has brandished a blinking a farmyard implement to register their distrust and distaste into a bunch of psychotic, Satanist, Satan-worshipping lunatics in the Houses of Parliament and beyond. So sorry if I sound a little bit cut.
No, but I'll be straight with you though. I believe for the survival of the human race, we've got to find a way of getting rid of that scum that want to control us. Because nobody, when we're born onto this earth, nobody said, "Oh yes, I'd like a government over me, please." It's just sort of accepted. You know, once you become, I don't know, above toddler, shall we say, young child, you just accept that, government is ruling you. But I guess it's similar in a way to slaves that were born into slavery. They just accepted they were slaves. Yep. They didn't realise that there's freedom out there. Well, look at a goldfish. You know, he says, "I'm free. I'm in this goldfish bowl," but doesn't realise that he could be free in a pond. You know.
I guess ultimately we all need to be coming together. We all need to be in unity, and sometimes it doesn't feel like that's where we are. I think we the truth side of things are trying to get in unity, but it feels as though they're still being attacked, even though we are trying to do the right thing. We're all trying to come together for the better of everybody, but we're all isolated. We're all in different locations. I mean, between the three of us here or four of us here, there's thousands of miles between like each of us potentially. We're all isolated. We're all united, but we're all separated as well at the same time. That's
right.
And I think sometimes the truth community gets a lot of bad rap when we're trying to do the right thing. I mean, I talk to people. I talk to people all the time.
In a small way, we can do our own thing.
And like I said to you about these little acts of kindness I do. Okay, it probably doesn't mean anything in the bigger scheme of things, but that's one individual that then turns around and says, "Well, okay, that's made my day." Okay, well, that might be one person who then goes out and does another act of kindness. That's 2 people who then does another one. That's 3. Before we know it, we've got 50 people doing acts of kindness, which is basically putting 2 fingers up to the government. So I don't always necessarily agree that the truth community seems to get picked on here, and it shouldn't be. We should be. We're supposed to be all getting together and working together. But it doesn't matter what we believe, whether. Like the Jolly Man, he seems to get a lot of rap on here because he believes the Earth's flat. But that's the idea of this radio show, isn't it? Is that that it's a place where the awake community can come and be themselves. Otherwise, it's no different than being dictated to by the government. And I just think I think we need to stop picking on the truth community, because if somebody new to the truth community is listening in, they might think to themselves, "Hang on a second, maybe I don't want to be on here. Maybe I've hit the wrong button."
Good point.
We need to be unified, not alienating each other. Otherwise, we're doing the same as the government do.
May I do a plug?
Yeah, have a plug, mate.
Okay. So t.me/Holy Land Radio. Go there. I just put up my latest Bible and Catechism study. I do this every Wednesday for an hour or a little more. And it's interesting that today I did a reading of, I usually end with an episode of the lives of the saints. And today's the feast day of Saint Basil of Ankara, Turkey. But he was martyred by Julian the Apostate, who was the son or grandson of the Emperor Constantine. So Constantine became a Christian, and then Julian reverted back to paganism. And then he did a deal where he had the help of the Jews to take over Persia, Iran, modern day Iran. Mm-hmm. And in payment for that, he said he would help them build the temple again, the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. And the moment that this was recorded by both a pagan, a Christian, and a heretic, that the moment they tried to lay the foundation of the new third temple, all of a sudden all of the workers burst into flames, and everything burst into flames when they tried to do it. And that's the feast day of Saint Basil. And Basil was martyred by Julian, and he tortured him and tore his flesh to pieces a little bit at a time, and he ended up taking one of them and throwing the piece of his flesh at Julian. And I tell the story in that. So if you want to listen to more of that, go to t.me/Holy Land Radio. And that's my little plug. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thanks, and thank you. Have you got any survival things coming up, Steve, or anything you want to plug?
Yes. I can't remember the dates. I think it's the end of May, which is in North Wales. But I also do spiritual survival. So I'm at an event actually this Sunday with a gentleman called Mark Barth, who would make an interesting guest, by the way.
Oh, that'd be good. Yes, me will be welcome on.
I mean, by all means, check out his channel on YouTube. It's called The Coop Files, as in COOP, as in chicken coop.
Write this down.
So the Coop Files, and he talks similar things about natural law, and he's a very good speaker. So me and him are speaking on Sunday in the Northeast. If anyone's interested in anything I've said, by the way, I know a lot of some people might take offense or might find my my delivery a little bit abrupt. This doesn't mean I disrespect anybody, by the way. I respect everybody's comments. I don't necessarily agree with them. I'll be quite upfront with that. Especially, I'm going to have a hard time with some of the religious, erroneous ones again. But if anyone wants to know why and how, I will discuss these things in better detail.
Yeah, but Steve, you respect everybody. That's the main thing.
I try my best. I don't respect the government, obviously, because they're a bunch of lying scumbags, or the police or the military. But I will say that as a reminder, our rights come from God, not the government. And obviously, everything I stand for is is what's known as natural law, which is the laws of God. So I explain this in more detail at things like the presentation I'm giving on Sunday, if anyone's interested.
And that'll be up north, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yes, my passport's not in order to go up there. That's the trouble.
Yeah.
So there we go. Well, thank you, everybody. And Paul, you got anything to plug? Like ice cream bars or something? Or
Me? No. Yeah. Just do acts of kindness.
I think
that's a good plug.
That's a very good plug, because I think that
almsgiving.
We're all frontline troops. Doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're 100 or 20 or 10 or whatever. And we got to do our bit in what we're skilled at doing. And some of us are good orators, some of us are not. And Paul, you're helping people by, being kind and that. And I think that we can all do our little bit to just pull the bastards down who are making our lives awful. And have you noticed all the placards, all the YouTube, it's World War III, it's fear porn. Oh, you won't have any food in the supermarket. And, give us a blatant break.
We went through COVID. It's not working anymore.
Yeah,
they tried to do all that fear stuff back then.
Fear
porn. It's just like we're just kind of hardened to it now, I think.
That's right. Was it 50 mile an hour speed limit? Oh, really? Yeah. Because they did that years ago, and it was be thrifty, max 50, and someone put underneath, it may be thrifty doing 50, but a ton's more fun. So there we go. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone that's been on the show tonight. Please join us tomorrow night. Gentlemen, you're more than welcome to come on board with Ben Emlyn Jones, and I always get his name wrong. And always remember, please put a thumbs up and support Steve and Patrick and Paul's, our themes going forward. And whatever happens, have a bloody good laugh and good night.